All right. So, what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. Let me just check the sound real quick. Coming to you live. And we're good. The time right now is 9:46 p.m. It's July 17th, 2024, and I just have a few stories that I want to talk about, maybe for an hour, maybe an hour and a half. There's a lot I want to cover, so I'm just going to jump into it real quick, and anybody that wants to join in the conversation, jump in the comment section. I'll try to reply to all the comments, questions that I get, and we're going to keep it real, raw, and funky on this channel. So, first story today. If you've been online for the past few hours, you've heard that Big Sean did an On the Radar freestyle. This is like, I believe, in the UK, and he was freestyling over Aaliyah's beat, If Your Girl Only Knew. And so there's been controversy over whether Big Sean is going at Kendrick Lamar. And a lot of this was started by commentary by DJ Academics. So let's break this down. I'm just going to be reading from TMZ right here. It says clearly, big bold letters, Big Sean not dissing Kendrick on the Radar freestyle, says Academics stirring the pot. This was published on July 17th, 2024 at 9:47 a.m. Let's jump into it. So Big Sean is denying his latest lyrical assaults are aimed at Kendrick Lamar, a narrative he's blaming DJ Academics for drumming up. The Detroit rapper resumed his comeback this week on the coveted On the Radar freestyle series over Aaliyah and Timbaland's If Your Girl Only Knew track. And Ack promoted the lyrics, I got better things to do than find someone to beef with, as K. Jabs. Okay. Let's play a clip of it. I hope I don't get a copyright strike. Let's see. Hold up.
One time for baby girl Aaliyah, real Detroit.
Rest in peace, Aaliyah.
Yep.
I'm probably gonna get a copyright strike.
Look.
Hold up. Okay.
Niggas looking for engagement like they got they need big.
Okay.
I got better things to do than find someone to beef with.
All right. I really don't want that copyright strike. We're gonna be reading the lyrics later, but it's not hard to find. Just type in Big Sean over the Radar freestyle, on the Radar freestyle, and you can check it out yourself. But here's Ack's exact quote. Big Sean cooked Kendrick, spread on social media like wildfire, spurring discussion that Sean Don was ready to challenge K. for the reigning rap throne. Now the thing is, Big Sean was one of the contenders to be one of the greats of like the early 2010s, right? He was in that same category as Drake, as Kid Cudi, as J. Cole, as Wale, and Kendrick as well. Like, he's a part of that same class. Like, if you're my age and you were in college or you were beginning or finishing high school or something like that, like, you remember those moments, like when, Sean was dropping, J. Cole was dropping, Drake was dropping, Wale was dropping, and it seemed like there was a whole new crop of like heavy lyrical spitters coming from different regions too, who were ready to like take over the game. And as time progressed, because of the type of music Sean makes, his music didn't really translate into like penetrating the hearts of men, being widely beloved by lyricists. Now he still has that hardcore following, and I do think he is a great spitter. And I think actually Detroit lyricists do not get enough respect in hip hop. But Drake just went, atmospheric, stratospheric, out of this world with his success. J. Cole ended up becoming like, a cult icon, and Kendrick became like the Pulitzer Prize winning, voice of a generation. And Big Sean and Wale sort of got like left behind in the sauce for various reasons. I think Kanye sort of sabotaged Big Sean's career, in my opinion, and I think Wale had mental health issues that sort of prevented him from being as great as he could be. You get what I'm saying? So Mythical Fights, said Big Sean got his feelings hurt. He low-key fell off. I don't know how you could fall off when almost every album you have goes platinum or multi-platinum. You get what I'm saying? I don't think that's falling off, but I think I will agree that his name doesn't ring as much as J. Cole's, as Kendrick's, as Drake's, and that sort of stuff. Like, he's more into playing it low-key. I really think he really does put his pen to work. Out of all the rappers who I think really write their own bars, I think it's still only Big Sean, J. Cole, Wale, Meek. That's what I'm saying. Like, when we think about that class, that's like the last class of like rappers who still write their raps. That's my opinion, though. Mythical Fight says, Rio, RMC Mike, Sada Baby, Skills Baby, PZ, MJ are Detroit. You right, not fell off, but he's not where he was. I see what you're saying. I think Payroll, Giovanni, T Grizzly, like these are some of the sickest rappers, and they come from Detroit. Detroit got some of the heaviest spitters in the game. Big Eminem, whether you like Eminem or not. Eminem is not in my GOAT. Well, he is a GOAT, but he is not in my top 5, dead or alive. You get what I'm saying? He fell off. Eminem fell off so hard. But we cannot deny Eminem's pen game. The Detroit lyricists are not to be messed with. Anyway, I'm going to continue here. So Big Sean just dissed Kendrick Lamar and said Compton has been gentrified. This was posted by DJ Academics on Twitter. So Big Sean said, I laugh at the fact they calling y'all the greatest. I'ma set it on. Okay, why are you misquoting lyrics, DJ Academics? We solidify. You niggas say you run your city, but that shit gentrified. Okay. So Act doubled down and fanned the flames by reposting Sean, previewing a new track he also suggested was anti-Kendrick with a swipe at his Compton hometown. Okay, so I will be reading the lyrics. I will not be getting copyright strikes. None of that on this channel. So Sean dismissed Act's attempts of starting a beef as quote-unquote reaching, and later backed veteran journalist Rob Markman's assessment that there's nothing to be found but beats, rhymes, and life on the track. So this is what DJ Academic said. So Big Sean just dissed Kendrick Lamar and said Compton has been gentrified. Big Sean jumped to the comments and said, Jack Reacher, you my nigga act, but you're reaching on this one, laughing emoji. Well said, bro. I was beginning to wonder if anyone actually heard me. Sorry. LOL. Love Rob. Okay. So Rob Markman. By the way, I met Rob Markman. He's a cool dude. Very cool dude. Anyway, continuing here. So back in 2020, Sean cleared up any misconceptions between him and Kendrick on the track Deep Reverence and earned a Grammy nom in the process. Fame's thirst for blood might not go completely quenched. However, DJ Head jumped in the comments and said this, I talked to Sean, the bar was, I got things to do than find someone to beef with, and it was not for K-Dot. Bar was directed at another Gemini. DJ Head says Sean told him the lyrics weren't for Kendrick, but another Gemini. And now we need Sean's ex-label boss, Kanye West, to come to the front of the congregation to clear his name. Listen, I don't get why people put so much power into, zodiac signs, astrological signs, none of that. But hey, if all of them are Geminis, I just find that to be a strange coincidence. Anyway, I'll just say this. I think there is a good possibility, and this is my vote. I'm letting y'all vote in the comment section. But what do y'all think? I really think Sean could wash Kendrick. I think Sean could wash Kendrick because I don't think there's as much baggage around Sean's name as there is Drake's. I mean, Drake, if we really think about it, was an easy target. Mega celebrity, super pop star, hella famous, had all sorts of weird allegations. And of course, you can't make it to the top without, somebody being able to dissect your entire life. I feel like we really don't know that much about Big Sean. Now, once again, I think people are going to look at my hip-hop predictions and say they're totally off because I predicted that Drake was actually going to wash Kendrick because I said we know everything about Drake. What's Kendrick going to pull out the bag that's going to make us side-eye Drake? Oh, he did. A minor. Like, I was wrong. I can admit I was wrong. I admit I was wrong about Drake being able to wash Kendrick. I thought that was going to happen because my theory was we don't know anything about Kendrick. And Drake did exactly what I thought he was going to do. Pull out all sorts of accusations and receipts on Kendrick saying he beat his wife. He's addicted to smashing white women. He's never going to marry his girl. One of his kids ain't his. Like, he was trying to really expose Kendrick. So I was actually right in my prediction. But I was wrong in my assessment of how effective that would be and how Kendrick would reply. I'm going to put the same prediction out there. I'm going to put the prediction out there actually in reverse. That Kendrick can't really expose Big Sean because we don't really know that much about him. And it can't really go that way. I think it's going to really be bar for bar. Who's got the cleverer bars, funnier bars, more wicked lyrics, that sort of thing. That's my prediction if Kendrick and Big Sean go at it. And honestly, I feel like in the year of Cat Williams, in the year of call-out culture, in the year of everybody just going at everybody, Big Sean and Kendrick should happen this year too. Fuck it. Let's just see it. I want to see it. I want to see it for real, for real. Anyway, I'm going to jump into the comments real quick. So, Mythical Fight says Kendrick is for the culture. I don't know if Sean is tough, just not thick-skinned like King Fu Kenny. Okay. Sean's control verse started most of this, funny enough. So, Tupac, a Gemini too, said Mythical Fights. And Mythical Fight said Sean is more in the limelight than Kenny. Sean dated celebs. Kendrick turned Sean into dishes, bro. Sean is up there in the lyricism. I get what you're saying. But Sean is a lyricist too. I mean, let's just play the video. Forget the copyright strike. Hold it, wait.
We solidify. You niggas talking about you in your city, that shit gentrify. You having an identity crisis, how you identify? B.I.G. you minimize. I'm him, I've been that guy. They gon' have to hold it down until I'm really in the sky, like unidentified.
Come on, man. That's a spitter. That's a spitter. That's a Detroit spitter. I don't think y'all can play with him for real, for real. I'm gonna look at the comments. All right, so I got 3 votes, and most of the votes are saying hell nah. Hell nah. Big Sean cannot wash Kendrick. Okay, that's y'all's opinion. That's y'all's opinion. But let's read the lyrics. Let's not sleep on Sean's pen game. All right, so we're gonna actually read the lyrics of this On the Radar freestyle. we're gonna read the lyrics for the On the Radar freestyle because I don't want to copyright strike, but if I got one already, F it. We'll just do another live stream tomorrow. But anyway, here's how it goes. So, one time for baby girl Aaliyah, real Detroit legend. A lot of people be forgetting Aaliyah was from Detroit. I didn't even realize that until I got much older because she was running with like Missy and Timbaland. So I always thought she was from the South, low key. Anyway, continuing. So the verse goes like this. I had to switch the home team because they committed treason. Eliante, how that piece shit. Oh, what? Eliante, how the piece hit. Sorry, hold up. I had to switch the home team because they committed treason. Eliante, how the piece hit. I'm feeling seasick. Niggas looking for engagement like they got their knees bent. I got better things to do than find someone to beef with. Or else I'm off the deep end. This game will take you either way. You know it's offense, defense. They say it's lonely at the top. Well, come on and talk to me then. From where they quick to draw your watch like they trying to do freehand. If your girl only knew, I fly her out this weekend. But you lucky because I'd rather spend some time with Lil Man. I see myself in my son. It's like I'm tucking me in. Bitches in trouble. He already started to break hearts and bursting bubbles. It's shooters that'll shoot you regardless if Metro trusts you. That's a funny line. It's shooters that'll shoot you regardless if Metro trusts you. That's a hard bar. That's a bar. All right. Paid in full niggas like me love the hustle. They want to disrupt you. Others try to one-up you. Luckily, I'm up to God's time and ain't no rushful. World in my hands. I'ma treat it like a Rubik's Cube. Maneuver through. From the ground up, took it through the roof. Best advice I ever gave myself was just be true to you. I always knew that I was the best. I gotta prove it too. Man, this industry is terrible. I can't even vouch. I seen grown men getting matching tattoos for the clout. That's a Kanye diss. That's a Kanye diss because Kanye got matching tattoos with Lil Uzi Vert and I think, what's his name? The Dave Lucy's, something like that. Some guy. I think the guy that was at the Kendrick Pop-Out show. Yeah. So during the Yeezy Gap Shades rollout, Kanye was spotted getting matching tattoos with Lil Uzi and Steve Lacy, who modeled for the shades, with the phrase "We here forever." Technically, yeah. I don't know if I can get matching tattoos with a man. I don't know, bro. I don't know if I can get matching tattoos with a man. That's hella suspect. That's hella suspect for me. All right. So I had train wrecks and kick home wreckers out of my house. I seen 8-figure checks at once hit my account. That showed me enough. Some feeling, dog, it's not an amount. Cause I've been up and still hungry like I'm down for the count. Difference is I'm an activist and you drink activist. And I'm back acclimated. And I'm gonna need my cutoff top. It's decapitated, nigga. What the fuck you pro at? Procrastinating? Sean, where the fuck you been at? Recalibrating? It's mixed in your inner circle. Niggas is half hating. Fucking it up so long, dog. I ain't even light-winded. Niggas back acting up like when that strike ended. Hey, Sean got bars, man. Niggas back acting up like when the strike ended. Get it? The Hollywood strike. None of the people were working in Hollywood, so they weren't acting. Okay, that's hard. That's a bar. All right. New ring flash before your eyes, like your life ending. Niggas be complaining too much. Quit acting light-skinned. Okay, he might be taking shots at Drake too. Might be taking shots at Drake too, but trust when I see your dark side, I got night vision. Going hard, it's going hard as Dr. Umar on white women, on God. Okay, all right. So let's break these lyrics down a bit. I think this is really directed at Kanye West. I had to switch the home team because they committed treason. He's talking about Kanye West going on Drink Champs and basically saying like the worst thing he ever did was sign Big Sean. Kanye said, basically, Big Sean was a terrible investment for him. Eliante, how the piece hit, that's too much rich nigga talk for me. I don't understand that. I'm feeling seasick. I guess he's saying like the ice, is making him seasick. Niggas looking for engagement, like they got their knees bent. Now, I can understand how this could be a diss at Kendrick, because Kendrick and Whitney are not married. They've been engaged for 9 years, 10 years, something like that. So he might be saying like, you looking for engagement, like you've been looking for that, engagement as in like interaction from the audience, social media clout and all that sort of stuff, but also a double entendre, like you're talking about engagement, like to your wife, stuff like that. I got better things to do than find someone to beef with. I think that line can go both ways. It can go at Kanye and it can go at Kendrick, because the Kendrick-Sean beef has been brewing for a while. So you can beef with multiple people at one time, and Drake has shown that. So, or else I'm off on the deep end. This game will take you either way. It's offense, defense. Yeah. I think, once again, it's an illusion. I think there are some illusions in this diss to Kendrick and Kanye. Because when you say, this game will take you either way, offense, defense, think about this, right? Like Kanye dissing Sean sort of had to put Big Sean on the defense, right? And then Kendrick dissing, everybody in the industry on the control verse is him going on major offense, was once again put Sean on defense, because I believe Big Sean got name checked in that control verse too. So I believe it can go either way. Like he's showing in this game you have to be ready for attacks on all sides and be ready to go on offense or defense. So will come and talk to me. They say it's lonely at the top. Well, come and talk to me then. From where they quick to draw your watch like they trying to freehand. If your girl only knew I fly her out this weekend, but you lucky because I'd rather spend some time with Lil Man. I see myself and my son. It's like I'm tucking me in. Now, I don't think it's just a coincidence or just a free bar for him to be talking about his kid, because I think the temperature is that Kendrick created. Any rapper who is not a good family man, any rapper who's like 35 years old plus, who isn't married or doesn't have his kids or something together or something to show for his life for all the money and success he's attained, I believe he's trying to put up that defense, which I think is a bit weird. That now in hip hop, you gotta have a family, a kids, a wife, you gotta be like sort of like middle class suburban dad to be considered legitimate in hip hop. Think about how old hip hop has come. Like hip hop turned 50 years old this year, and now rappers are dissing each other because they don't have families. They don't have wives. So I don't think it's a coincidence for Sean to be talking like this. All right, continuing here. Bitch is in trouble. He already starting to break hearts and bursting bubbles. It's shooters that'll shoot you regardless if Metro trusts you. That's hard. I still like that line. I love that line. All right. Paid in full. Niggas like me love the hustle. They want to disrupt you. Others trying to one-up you. Luckily, I'm up to God's time. Ain't no rush full. World in my hands. I'ma treat it like a Rubik's Cube. Maneuver through from the ground up. Took it through the roof. Best advice I ever gave myself was just be true to you. I always knew that I was the best. I guess I gotta prove it too. Man, this industry is terrible. I can't even vouch. I seen grown men getting matching tattoos for the clout. Now, I believe him talking about Kanye getting matching tattoos with Steve Lacy and Lil Uzi Vert. I think that does hurt Big Sean to some degree. Like Mythical Fight said in the chat, Big Sean felt like, Kanye was his hero. Like Kanye was a hero to all of us. Like if you were rapping or if you were a hip hop fan coming up around that time, like Kanye is GOAT status. Like Kanye was, our MJ for a brief time. And, to see how Kanye sort of disrespected Big Sean, and on top of that seems to be click hopping and jumping from every hot trending rapper to the next one, it sort of makes Big Sean, in my opinion, probably feel like, this guy I was loyal to a fault because he ended up betraying me. So I think that's why he put that diss out there. So I had train wrecks and kicked some home wreckers out of my house. I seen 8-figure checks at once hit my account. That shows me enough. Some feeling, dog, it's not an amount. Cause I've been up and still hungry like I'm down for the count. Difference is I'm an activist and you drink activist. Okay, who's he talking about? Because Kendrick did say, and Not Like Us, I lean on you niggas like another line of wok. Now, I don't know if Kendrick started pulling up, putting drink in his cup. But once again, I think everybody's going to be hypercritical. Everybody's going to be hypercritical. And I think there might be some, hints, rumors out there that Kendrick do be leaning. I lean on you niggas like another line of wok. Yeah, it's all eyes on me and I'ma send it up to Pac. Okay. Difference is I'm an activist and you drink activist. Okay. It also makes me think of like the bars from Hollow the Dawn versus, what was it, Loaded Lux? What was that, like 8-9 years ago? When Loaded Lux says, stand up because real men don't lean or something like that. Double entendre talking about, Hollow the Dawn always like drinking activists, drinking lean and stuff like that. I think a lot of these rap bars are being recycled from battle rap as well. Anyway, and I'm back acclimated. And I'm gonna need my cutoff top. It's decapitated, nigga. What the fuck you pro at? Procrastinating? Sean, where the fuck you been at? Recalibrating? Now, the procrastinating might be talking about him because, Big Sean stays quiet for long periods of time. I feel like there are years that go by with us out hearing, with us going without hearing from Big Sean. That's what it sounds like to me. So it sounds like this might be him talking to himself more than him talking to Kendrick or talking to Kanye, right? Kanye is not known for procrastinating. He drops like an album every year. There might have been a criticism against Kendrick for procrastinating because he hadn't been, outside. And that's what Drake was saying too. So it's mixed in your inner circle. Niggas is half hating, fucking it up so long, dog. I ain't even light-winded. Niggas back up acting like when that strike ended. New ring flash before your eyes like your life ended. Niggas be complaining too much, quit acting light-skinned. Now, does Sean want the smoke with Drake? I feel like Drake, even though Drake got whooped by Kendrick, whooped by Pusha T, I feel like he could handle Big Sean. I feel like Drake could handle Big Sean. I don't know why. I constantly get my hip hop predictions wrong, guys. So take this with a grain of salt. But I honestly think Drake could handle Big Sean. That's my opinion, though. That's my opinion. I always get it wrong, though. Hey, but trust when I see your dark side, I got night vision going hard as Dr. Umar on white women. On God. Okay. All right. So that's all I got to say about this Big Sean thing. I hope if it does happen, it's not a complete destruction of Big Sean like what Kendrick did to Drake. And I hope vice versa, Big Sean doesn't completely destroy Kendrick. I hate to see black men tearing each other down at this high level. So that's all I got to say about that. That's all I got to say. So once again, good luck, Big Sean, on whatever you're planning. Don't keep on poking the bear. Let's see. Let's close the poll. I'm going to close the poll right now. I'm going to end the poll. All right, so what are the results? So 75% answered the question. Could Big Sean wash Kendrick? 75% said hell nah. And only 25% said hell yeah. So that's 4 votes for that. So that means 3 people, said hell no, he couldn't do it. All right, let's go to our other guy, JD Vance. JD Vance. Trump's pick for VP. I'm going to be reading a few articles about him. Kind of a surprise he picked him, though not a surprise because generally, vice presidential picks are people that are supposed to be low key. They're not supposed to, take up more air than the main candidate and that sort of stuff. So I would like to know what y'all think. JD Vance, trash pick or chess move on Trump? Y'all vote in the comments. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Because we're going to be reading a few stories about JD Vance. So I'm pretty sure by now, most of y'all know who he is, where he comes from, Ohio senator, blah, blah, blah. I'm more focused on the issues. What does he think about the issues? What is he bringing to the table for Trump and all that sort of stuff? So let's go. JD Vance on the issue, from abortion to the Middle East. This was written in the New York Times. Like Donald J. Trump, the Ohio senator has been skeptical of American intervention overseas and argues that raising tariffs will create new jobs. And here's the guy right here. Once again, kind of interesting to see a Republican Republican with a beard, any politician with a beard, kind of uncommon in American politics. Going here, this was published on July 15, 2024, written by Adam Nagarni. So Senator JD Vance of Ohio, Donald J. Trump's newly chosen running mate, has made a shift from the Trump critic he was when he first entered politics to the loyalist he is today. It was a shift both in style and substance. Now, on topics as disparate as trade and Ukraine, Mr. Vance is closely aligned with Mr. Trump. Here's a look at where the senator stands on the issues that will most likely dominate the campaign ahead, and should Mr. Trump and Mr. Vance win in November, their years in the White House. So here's what JD Vance thinks about abortion. So, Mr. Vance opposes abortion rights. Let's repeat. Mr. Vance opposes abortion rights, even in the case of incest or rape. So if a father puts some nut in his daughter, yep, you gotta have that baby. That's the way God intended it to be, according to JD Vance in the Bible. Continuing here. So Mr. Vance opposes abortion rights even in the case of incest or rape, but says there should be exceptions for cases when the mother's life is in danger. He praised the U.S. Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade as he ran for Senate in 2022. A headline on the issue section of his campaign website read simply, "Ban abortion." Mr. Vance has said that he would support a 15-week national ban proposed by Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. He has also said the matter is primarily a state issue, suggesting states should be free to make more restrictive laws. Ohio is going to want to have a different abortion policy from California, from New York, and I think that's reasonable, he said in an interview with USA Today Network in October 2022. Now, let's just make this clear. As far as my opinions on abortion, I know I have a lot of right-wing, radical, crazy, reactionary conservatives in my comment section. I don't know how y'all feel about abortion, but I feel like this, federally, across the nation, it should be allowed up to, what is it? Not 15 weeks. 15 weeks is way too soon. 15 weeks is way too soon. Let's say 19 weeks. Yeah, 19 weeks, you can get an abortion. Up to 19 weeks. Let's make it 20. Let's make it 20. A good, solid 20 weeks to get an abortion, and that should be the law across the nation, not various states. There shouldn't be one abortion clinic in the whole state of Mississippi. There should be abortion clinics available to all women in every major metro all across the country, and people should have the right to choose what to do with their own bodies. It's not up to men to decide when women should be able to or should have to go through pregnancy. All right, that's just where I stand on that. All right, here, let's go to Ukraine. What does JD Vance think about Ukraine? Mr. Vance has been one of the leading opponents of U.S. support for Ukraine in the war with Russia. I think it's ridiculous that we're focused on the border in Ukraine, he said in a podcast interview with Stephen K. Bannon, the former Trump advisor and longtime ally. I've got to be honest with you. I don't really care what happens to Ukraine one way or the other. Now, the crazy thing is there's a lot of Europeans who jump into my comment section, and I also meet them in person, who say, I want Trump to win. Trump should be the president of the United States. He'll be so much better than Biden. Crazy Europeans, Central and Eastern Europeans say this as if they think it's impossible for Russia to stomp over their borders again. Think about this. Trump doesn't care anything about NATO, doesn't care about Ukraine. He said he could let Putin just take the country. What are all these crazy Europeans always saying? Like, yeah, Trump would be better. Thank God they can't vote. Thank God they can't vote. And so JD Vance says he doesn't care about what happens in Ukraine. Okay, all right, well, that's your opinion. He led the battle in the Senate unsuccessfully to block a $60 billion military aid package for Ukraine. I voted against this package in the Senate and remain opposed to virtually any proposal for the United States to continue funding this war. He wrote in an opinion essay for the New York Times earlier this year, challenging President Biden's stance on the war. Mr. Biden has failed to articulate even basic facts about what Ukraine needs and how this aid will change the reality on the ground. So that's his opinion about Ukraine. My opinion about Ukraine, Russia was wrong to invade this country. It doesn't even make sense for them geostrategically to do it. And it sets a bad precedent for other nations around the world that you can just cross over a border, kill innocent civilians, take over people's land, as if this is the age of imperialism and colonialism all over again. So I actually support, to some degree, America trying to help Ukraine fight back Russia, right? It can lead to more instability across the world, and Yeah, whenever the Europeans go to war, the whole world suffers. So what we have to do, just for our own safety, just for our own safety as global citizens, is try our best to make sure that Europe doesn't explode into World War III, because most of the nuclear weapons are in the hands of the white supremacists. And if they start going at each other, blowing each other up, yeah, we're going to be living like in Fallout. Like, it's going to be crazy. So, yeah, we got to continue to support Ukraine, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, though. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Let's go to immigration. What does JD Vance think about immigration? So immigration was the subject of Mr. Vance's first advertisements in his 2022 campaign for the Senate in Ohio. While most ads are written by consultants, Mr. Vance said he wrote this one himself. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans, he says, looking straight into the camera, with more illegal drugs and more Democrat voters pouring into this country. Right-wing talking points. They get stupider and stupider. Yes, people who are not Americans are instantly going to cross the border just to vote for the Democrats in the elections. How stupid? How stupid can they be? Continuing here. So, Mr. Vance's views on immigration largely echo Mr. Trump. He wants to finish the construction of the border wall and proclaim that he would oppose every attempt to grant amnesty to immigrants who arrived here illegally. He favors what he called a merit-based system for immigrants seeking to settle here. Mr. Vance argues that undocumented immigrants are a source of cheap labor that undercuts wages for American-born workers in states like Ohio. If you cannot hire illegal migrants to staff your hotels, then you have to go to one of these 7 million prime-age American men who are out here, who are out of the labor force, and find a way to re-engage them. Okay, so is there some truth to immigrants taking American jobs? I don't know. I don't think the problem is as widespread as people think it is. And on top of that, I think a lot of the people who are so hell-bent on being anti-immigration to America or illegal immigration, there is an undertone of racism within it, of course, like in anything in the American discourse, right? Because there was no tone of, oh, let's stop the immigrants from coming when the Ukrainians were trying to cross the Mexican border, when the Russians were trying to sneak in through Canada. And through the centuries, the basically illegal immigration from Europe onto the American continent, there was no talk like, oh, this is wrong, or we shouldn't be here, or anything like that. Yeah, it's always a double standard when it comes to brown-skinned people or black people trying to enter America. And it becomes, okay, oh, there's too many immigrants here. They're ruining the nation. But I think, more importantly, if you are anti-immigration, you guys should be boycotting all the companies that are hiring the illegal immigrants, all the slaughterhouses, all the meat packing factories, all the restaurants, all the fast food chains, all the companies that are actually hiring illegals. Find out who they are. It's not that hard to find. Many of them have been sued or cracked down on for trying to do this. Why don't y'all boycott them? This is the thing. Y'all would just rather be racist than actually try to stand for what you believe in. You get what I'm saying? Continuing here. So, what are his opinions on January 6th? January 6th. I think the election was stolen from Trump, Mr. Vance said during the Republican primary for his Ohio seat, putting him firmly in the camp of election deniers. Mr. Vance dismissed the idea that Mr. Trump played a role in instigating the demonstrators who stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021. And he said that if he had been Mr. Trump's vice president then, he would have bowed to Mr. Trump's demand and rejected electoral votes from several swing states won by Mr. Biden in 2020. That's basically treason. That's basically treason. You're taking Trump's words over your constitutional oath to carry out the duties of the elected office. What Mike Pence did was constitutional. It was right. It was legal. What Trump was asking Mike Pence to do by not certifying the electors who rightfully picked Joe Biden as the president, he was asking him to commit a crime. And JD Vance is saying here, yeah, I would have committed that crime on behalf of Donald Trump. What type of world are we living in where the party of law and order are choosing candidates who are explicitly talking about openly in public, saying that they're going to break the law, violate the Constitution? All the people who were involved in January 6th, storming into the Capitol, breaking into offices, trying to hang Mike Pence and and trying to do horrible things to the other elected officials there. All of those people are criminals. All of those people are domestic terrorists. All of those people should be rotting under the jail. And saying that, yeah, all the January 6 people, they should be let go. And on top of that, I would have done Trump's bidding of not doing my constitutional oath of certifying the election. It's crazy that anybody would actually vote Republican. I'm shocked. All right. And he is skeptical that former Vice President Mike Pence, who hid in a stairway as members of the mob streamed through the hallways, was in danger because he refused to block, in his role as president of the Senate, the votes validating Mr. Biden's victory. I think politics people like to really exaggerate things from time to time. He said on CNN, look, January 6th was a bad day. It was a riot. But the idea that Donald Trump endangered anyone's lives when he told them to protest peacefully is just absurd. Real people died. Like police officers died. They got hit over the head with like fire extinguishers. The video evidence is there of MAGA Republicans breaking into the Capitol trying to attack police officers. The party of law and order was over here attacking the people who are supposed to be the arbiters of law and order in our society. Continuing here, what are his views on tariffs, the sexiest topic in American discourse? So, Mr. Vance has called for broad-based tariffs, especially on goods coming in from China, because they pose an unfair threat to American jobs and commerce, he said. We need to protect American industries from all the competition, he said on CBS's Face the Nation. In that stance, Mr. Vance is again largely in line with Mr. Trump, who has proposed a 10% across-the-board tariff on goods coming into the country. That idea has come under fire from Democrats and many economists, who warned that it would be inflationary. But Mr. Vance rejected the criticism as overblown. He said in the CBS interview that applying tariffs is like saying, we're going to penalize you for using slave labor in China and importing that stuff in the United States. And he added, you end up making more stuff in America, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and in Michigan. I think most reputable economists say tariffs do not work in, punishing a country or fostering, domestic economic growth. I think most mainstream moderate economists would say that lowering tariffs and interconnecting the world through trade and commerce is actually going to make generally the economics better for a lot of nations under the system of capitalism, of course. All right, continuing here, going to the climate. What does JD Vance think about the earth getting so hot? Mr. Vance has said climate change is not a threat. Oh, God. Oh, God. I'm still surprised this talking point has lasted so long for the Republicans. Like, I'm old enough to remember the Republicans going on TV in like the early 2000s and having vivid, like, veins in the neck debates with other, pundits and stuff, saying that climate change is not real. The earth is not getting hotter. This is all overblown. It's not because of cars or oil or anything. I'm surprised when, like, everybody across the world is experiencing, like, ungodly heat. It's getting hotter and hotter all across the planet. I'm still surprised the Republicans are just basically running with a straight look in your eyes like climate change is not real. Like they will look you in the eyes and say that the earth is not getting hotter. I'm still surprised. Anyway, Mr. Vance has said climate change is not a threat and has said he is skeptical of the scientific consensus that warming of the Earth's atmosphere is caused by human activity. It's been changing, as others pointed out. It's been changing for millennia, he told the American Leadership Forum. Mr. Vance is a strong supporter of the oil and gas industry, which is dominant in his home state, and has voiced opposition to wind and solar energy and electric vehicles. Okay, that's bad. I have yet to find a policy that I agree with him on. Come on now. All right, Middle East. Mr. Vance has been a steadfast supporter of Israel throughout the country's war in Gaza, defending its wartime policies in the face of growing criticism over the civilian death toll. When members of the Senate considered a bill providing military aid to both Israel and Ukraine, Mr. Vance led a group of senators proposing legislation to send money only to Israel. Echoing the words of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, he said the country needed to eliminate Hamas after the terrorist group's deadly October 7th attack on Israel. Israel has an achievable objective. Yes, eliminating the Palestinian people from the face of the earth is an achievable objective. Getting the desire for freedom and independence out of their heart is an achievable objective. We just have to keep on bombing more 10-year-olds. Israel has an achievable objective, Mr. Vance wrote in a memo he circulated among Senate Republicans before introducing the bill. Ukraine does not. Mr. Vance assailed President Biden for delaying the shipment of weapons to Israel as tensions grew between the White House and Mr. Netanyahu's government. He acknowledged the civilian casualties in Gaza. Our heart certainly goes out to them, he said, but he maintained that the blame for that lies not with Israel, but with Hamas. Okay, so yeah, horrible Middle East policy. We need to have a ceasefire now, stop the genocide, and an independent Palestinian state, or a one-state solution where the Palestinian civilians can be treated like equals in that society where there's Jewish supremacy. So yeah, his Middle East policy is bad. Climate change is definitely happening. The earth is getting hotter. We should be doing something to stop it. We need to have more green energy. He's against that. He just wants more coal, burn, baby, burn. Tariffs. I'm not an economist, but I think most economists would say that tariffs are not going to help domestic economic growth. Going here, January 6th, yeah, all those domestic terrorists should be under the jail. He believes that they shouldn't, and he would have followed Trump's plan on basically stealing the election by doing something unconstitutional, not certifying the electors. Okay, immigration. Immigration was the subject of Mr. Vance's first advertisements in his 2022 campaign. Yeah, he believes the immigrants are taking our jobs. Okay, I don't think that's exactly true. Ukraine, he's against supporting Ukraine. I would support Ukraine if I were the president, right? I wouldn't be sending them ultimately billions and billions of dollars, but I would be trying everything in my power to try to stop Russia from continuing to destabilize Eastern and Central Europe. All right, so that's who JD Vance was. Those are the issues with JD Vance. Now let's go to another topic here. Here's another story that I wanted to cover real quick. All right, and I'm gonna be reading more about JD Vance. So, how did JD Vance get the job? There were a few other people that we covered on my live stream talking about the different people that could have been Trump's VP pick. So I'm gonna be reading this article here from the New York Times. Here's JD Vance right here. How JD Vance won over Donald Trump. All right, so it started with a meeting at Mar-a-Lago more than 3 years ago. Later, Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, and other key allies made direct appeals on his behalf. This was written by Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman, published on July 16th, 2024. The meeting got off to a bad start. JD Vance walked into Donald J. Trump's office at Mar-a-Lago on a warm winter afternoon in February 2021. The former president had a thick stack of papers on his desk, printouts of Mr. Vance's copious broadsides against Mr. Trump. Okay. Mr. Vance's past criticisms had included an essay in one of Mr. Trump's least favorite magazines, The Atlantic, where Mr. Vance described Mr. Trump as cultural heroin, a purveyor of false promises to the white working class. Mr. Trump, using an expletive, bluntly told Mr. Vance, "You said some nasty stuff about me." The discussion that followed was described in detail by two people with knowledge of the meeting who insisted on anonymity to talk about a private conversation. Okay? Mr. Vance's next move was crucial. This was the first time he was meeting Mr. Trump, and Mr. Vance needed the former president to like him or at least leave the meeting with an open mind. Mr. Vance, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, a best-selling memoir about his troubled upbringing and the struggles and pathologies of the white working class, was running for the open U.S. Senate seat in Ohio as a Republican populist, a never-Trumper turned pro-Trumper. Mr. Vance decided to immediately apologize. He told Mr. Trump that he had bought into what he described as media lies and that he was sorry he got it wrong. Of all people, Mr. Vance told Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance himself should have understood. All right, so basically, when Trump first met Vance, Trump was like, "What the F you say about me, boy?" I can't curse because YouTube is demonetizing everything. You know, they demonetized my video that I did yesterday concluding reading Is the Turk a White Man? Because in the book, it said Nigger, and I just said the letters like that. And this video might get demonetized too, just because I said Nigger, which was in the book. Doesn't make sense. But anyway, continuing here. Basically, you know, JD Vance got it right that Trump is a white supremacist, a demagogue who has horrible rhetoric that has pushed America to become more extreme and polarized and prone to violence, for political violence and that sort of stuff. And so, you know, JD Vance, this young senator, is going to Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and he ends up bowing and kissing the ring and saying, "I'm sorry, Daddy Trump. I'm so sorry for even just even implying that you could be a bad candidate," that sort of stuff. Anyway, continuing here. So, continuing at this point. So Mr. Trump agreed, telling Mr. Vance that he should have understood because Mr. Vance had written the Hillbilly Elegy book. His implication was that Mr. Vance should have supported him because Mr. Trump's own base of non-college educated voters angry about globalization, immigration, and foreign wars were exactly the people Mr. Vance purported to represent. At that point, Mr. Trump seemed disarmed, and the meeting went on for almost 2 hours. They discussed the 2020 election and the Ohio race, but mostly they talked about the difficulties of politics. It had been less than a month since Mr. Trump left the White House a pariah in the wake of a pro-Trump mob storming the Capitol after the president had spent 2 months lying about a stolen election. This is what I don't understand about Republicans. He was meeting Trump after January 6th, after he lost the election. Why would you come to Mar-a-Lago, bow down and kiss the ring and say, I'm sorry for being a never-Trumper, when Trump just showed that he lost? He's a loser. And all the things he touches crumbles. He doesn't have the Midas touch. He has the opposite of the Midas touch. That's what I'm trying to understand. Somebody make it make sense for me. I know I got a lot of right-wing, reactionary, conservative cucks in my comment section. Y'all let me know. Explain to me why loser Donald Trump, who has lost in court, lost the election, almost lost his life, lost the top of his earlobe, how is this person constantly getting grown-ass men to bow down to him? I don't get it. I don't get it. All right. So Mr. Trump closed the conversation by asking Mr. Vance what he wanted. Mr. Trump told him that everyone else had already been down to Mar-a-Lago begging for his endorsement, a reference to Mr. Vance's potential opponents in the Ohio Senate primary. Mr. Vance, who along with the spokesman, Mr. Trump declined to comment for this article, told the former president he wasn't going to do that. Mr. Trump, surprised, asked Mr. Vance if he wanted the endorsement. Mr. Vance said that of course he wanted it, but that Mr. Trump should let him run his race and see how he did. Mr. Vance said he would not be the type of candidate who would attack the former president when the media came after him. All right, Mr. Trump seemed Mr. Trump seemed intrigued. All right. Mr. Trump replied, telling Mr. Vance, whom he called JD, to take care and check in from time to time. All right, continuing here. So Mr. Trump had relatively little personal contact with Mr. Vance after that first meeting. But he took notes as Mr. Vance kicked off his Senate campaign in July 2021, ran circles around his primary opponents in debates, and became a frequent presence on Tucker Carlson Tonight, at the time the top-rated show on cable television. All right. So Pedro Cordero says, my boy, fighting for rights. That's what we got to do, man. We're just fighting here. We're talking about JD Vance, the running mate for Donald Trump, his history, his politics, his stances on issues right here. And this is the thing. In my previous live stream talking about the potential running mates for Trump, I said the smartest thing for Trump to do would be to pick somebody who can debate Kamala well. Because Kamala is going to destroy 90% of Republicans in an actual debate about the facts and the issues. And the Republicans are just going to say they're wild, crazy talking points that fall out of the sky. He just has to find somebody who can stand up against the prosecutorial strength that Kamala shows whenever she has a debate with anybody. Now, she is a horrible politician. She's probably great at governance, but she's excellent at debating. We all remember that debate performance when she one-up Joe Biden and said, you know, I was one of those kids on those buses that you tried to say should stop, and that stopped him dead in his tracks. You get what I'm saying? So I think, once again, I think it's not uncommon for a president to pick somebody who is highly critical of them. Because like I just said, Joe Biden got crucified by Kamala Harris in that debate that they had for the Democratic primary that Joe Biden eventually won. Mr. Trump, Donald Trump, whatever, got crucified by JD Vance in editorials, and JD Vance was a never-Trumper. I think a lot of the times presidents like to pick a person who is critical of them to show the public that they're willing to be, held accountable, that they're not, beyond reproach, that they're willing to actually, face people that have different opinions about them and about issues. So that's what I think. That's what I think. That's why I think Trump chose JD Vance. But let's continue as to why Trump chose JD Vance. I'm going to continue in the story here. So Mr. Trump was impressed by JD Vance's performance skills. He told allies he thought Mr. Vance was smart and handsome. Those beautiful blue eyes, he'd say repeatedly. Great on TV and a killer at the debates. Mr. Trump, who split with allies at the influential conservative group Club for Growth in backing Mr. Vance, felt validated when Mr. Vance won the general election against his Democratic rival, Representative Tim Ryan, and then immediately became one of Mr. Trump's most vocal supporters in the Senate. When Mr. Trump announced his third campaign for president in November 2022, at a time when most Republicans wanted nothing to do with him, Mr. Vance distinguished himself by immediately signaling to Mr. Trump's staff that Mr. Vance was all in. Since then, Mr. Vance has played his cards nearly perfectly, making himself visible at key moments, promoting himself assertively, but not too much, publicly backing Mr. Trump during his Manhattan criminal trial, and having the right people champion him to former president at the right time. So that day in early 2021, Mr. Vance was ushered into Mr. Trump's office at Mar-a-Lago by one of the most secretive donors in GOP politics, Peter Thiel, the billionaire founder of PayPal, who broke with Silicon Valley to support Mr. Trump for president in 2016. Mr. Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., was at the meeting too. Though initially skeptical of Mr. Vance's loyalty, Donald Trump Jr. became close friends with him over the course of the Senate campaign. He became a huge asset when allies of Mr. Vance, his rivals for running mate, tried desperately to undermine Mr. Vance with a pressure campaign aimed at changing the elder Mr. Trump's mind. Now the 39-year-old Mr. Vance has become the party's vice presidential nominee. So essentially, Peter Thiel really liked JD Vance. Peter Thiel is like a billionaire tech bro who basically supported JD Vance, got in Trump's ear, or whatever was there of his ear before it got chopped off, and basically said, Vance, 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 to Trump, all right? And also Trump Jr. was up there like cheerleading for JD Vance as well. So, an experienced fighter in the modern culture wars, Mr. Vance is in many ways a different type of running mate from the one Mr. Trump selected in 2016. Mike Pence was a Ronald Reagan conservative and evangelical governor whose penchant for spontaneous prayer unnerved the man under whom he served. In Mr. Vance, Mr. Trump is picking someone whose impulses for fighting against existing institutions and challenging global systems match his own. Yet the arc of how Mr. Trump made his choices in 2016 and in 2024 had similarities. He had described both Mr. Pence and Mr. Vance as out of central casting. Then Mr. Trump began to question his options and solicited the opinions of everyone he spoke to, before ultimately returning where he began. But the lead up to Mr. Trump's selection of Mr. Vance was even more chaotic than it was with Mr. Pence. It was uncertain down to the final hours, with a frantic lobbying effort until the last possible moment by anti-Vance forces, including Rupert Murdoch and his allies, with some of it playing out in public. Mr. Trump seemed uncertain right until the end, privately raising some of the negative comments Mr. Vance had made about him in the past. Allies of Mr. Vance, including Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson, ran a counter-campaign to reassure Mr. Trump about the selection, with supportive calls to the former president continuing until the moment Mr. Trump finally told Mr. Vance of his decision on Monday afternoon, less than half an hour before he announced his choice on social media. Once again, isn't Elon Musk like a liar? Because I believe Elon Musk did an interview with Don Lemon this year, and he said he's not endorsing anybody. And I believe Elon Musk also said he's not going to give any funding to any campaign candidate. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Elon Musk is like doing phone calls with Trump saying, pick JD Vance, and we'll give you $1 billion to fund your campaign and all that sort of stuff. And we'll turn the media narrative in your favor. Because Elon Musk bought Twitter, for a lot of reasons, but I also think it was for political power, right? So, continuing here. The debate moment. 6 months into his Senate campaign, Mr. Vance was seen by most as the walking dead. Throughout the fall of 2021, he was savaged in the Ohio Republican Senate primary by television commercials that re-aired his past condemnations of Mr. Trump. Mr. Vance's support fell precipitously in private polling, and even Mr. Trump privately voiced concerns about the impact the ads were having in the race. Many Republican operatives believe Mr. Vance's chances of surviving the onslaught were close to zero. He began his comeback on a debate stage. At a March 2022 debate among the crowded Senate Republican field, Mr. Vance's two main rivals, Josh Mandel, a former Ohio state representative representative and treasurer, and the businessman Mike Gibbons nearly came to blows on the stage. Mr. Vance seized the moment. He described their fight as ridiculous and confronted Mr. Mandel for using Mr. Mandel's military service as a political football earlier in the debate, calling it disgraceful, setting off a burst of applause in the room. The moment presaged Mr. Vance as a deft performer on his feet, one who would eventually eviscerate his general election rival, Mr. Ryan, on the debate stage. Mr. Trump relished that primary debate confrontation and felt that it showed Mr. Vance had what it took. Mr. Trump has always paid close attention to debate performances, crediting his own showing in the 2016 debates for his victory over Hillary Clinton. He told allies he liked what he'd seen from Mr. Vance. 1 month after the debate, Mr. Trump formally endorsed him. Mr. Vance was helped in that race also by conservative media relationships that were proved not just durable, but critical in helping him become Mr. Trump's running mate. The most important of those relationships have been with Mr. Carlson, the former Fox News host, the reporter Matthew Boyle at Breitbart, and the political activist Charlie Kirk. Their support meant that in the conservative media ecosystem, the arena that decides the political lifespan of the average Republican, Mr. Vance was a made man. All right, so it basically seems like, a lot of people just sort of coalesced around this guy. And I think they want to have like the Obama effect with him. You know what I mean? Like Obama was that young senator representing this new brand of politics. But it's crazy because JD Vance isn't making his own name. He's attaching his wagon to Trump. JD Vance isn't sort of creating his own legacy like Obama did. Obama came out of nowhere, a fresh, new, once-in-a-generation type politician, Democrat or Republican, right? And basically created the party in his own image. That's sort of like what Trump did. But by JD Vance doing this, it sort of seems like a step backwards in his political career unless they win the election, which my prediction, once again, is that Trump will not win in November. And I don't know why JD Vance would do that. Anyway, the East Palestine visit. So, Mr. Trump announced his own candidacy for president a week after the November 2022 midterms. His campaign launch was a disaster. High-profile MAGA candidates endorsed by Mr. Trump had lost midterm races they should have won. Mr. Trump was blamed for the disappointing results, and most Republican elected officials stayed away from his presidential kickoff event at Mar-a-Lago. Shortly after he announced his campaign, Mr. Trump ignited a string of controversies, including calling for the termination of parts of the Constitution to overturn his 2020 defeat, and dining with Kanye West, a rapper whose stream of vitriol against Jews stirred outrage, and Nick Fuentes, a notorious white supremacist. Mr. Trump found himself abandoned by many in the Republican-leaning media, with Fox News extolling his main presidential primary rival, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, and his favorite newspaper, the New York Post, giving Mr. DeSantis the headline title, "Dead Future, haha." A chorus of prominent conservatives was saying it was time for fresh blood. Mr. Vance was not among them. He signaled privately to Mr. Trump's team shortly after the midterms that he planned to endorse the former president. He said he wanted to make an intellectual argument for Mr. Trump that would resonate with the donor class and other elites, according to a person briefed on the exchanges. He ended up announcing his endorsement in late January 2023 in an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, praising Mr. Trump's foreign policy. The proactive support was reassuring to the Trump team amid so many threatened defections at a time when the campaign seemed rudderless. The Trump campaign found its direction a month later. In February, it started with a visit to a derailment site of a train that had been carrying hazardous chemicals through East Palestine, Ohio. President Biden and his advisors had been criticized for days for not visiting the site, and Mr. Vance was among the most vocal critics of the federal response. Mr. Biden's administration blamed policy rollbacks from Mr. Trump's era for the derailment. Mr. Trump's son, Don Jr., soon had a thought. What if his father visited the site? He ran the idea past both Mr. Vance and Mr. Trump's top advisor, Susie Wiles, and a plan was soon in place. Flying aboard his plane, dubbed Trump Force One, from Florida to Ohio for the event, Mr. Trump was watching Fox News. Mr. Vance was on the air. The former president turned to his son and observed that Mr. Vance had been incredible, hasn't he? Using an expletive to underscore the point. So he said, oh, he's effing incredible. So basically, right, I really think, Trump is trying to get points in Ohio because Ohio might be considered a swing state. I don't know. I think Ohio has gone blue for the last few presidential elections, but I think Trump is hoping to make the chips fall in his favor by appealing to those Rust Belt voters, those Midwest swing voters, if there are any, right? And him visiting East Palestine, I don't think that's going to do much because I think most people have forgotten about the East Palestine train derailment incident. And a lot of people are just more focused on the big international issues, Ukraine, Gaza, and also like the political climate in America where, we're either going to select the proto-fascist, Republican, reactionary, conservative cuck nuts who are basically going to bring America into, the monarch stage, late stage capitalism led by an all-powerful emperor god, or we're going to have, continuation of liberal democracy where we have slow increments of progress and then large moments of regression through American history. I think that's what we're looking at here. So, I think JD Vance is sort of like hitching his wagon to this idea that he can actually be a part of bringing in that proto-fascism, that neo-capitalism that will, define America in the 21st century. Let's continue here. So when the plane landed, it was clear that Mr. Trump was stepping into a media vacuum created by Mr. Biden's absence. Walking down the movable stairs from his plane on the tarmac, Mr. Trump appeared on the extensive television coverage as if he were still president. He traveled in a motorcade, distributed red MAGA caps to local residents, and delivered water bottles to the community, all on TV. He bought burgers for his first responders at a local McDonald's. Mr. Vance stood alongside him throughout the day, the two men condemning federal officials they said had left the region behind. It was an early test of what they might be like on a campaign trail together. So here are a collection of the worst people you could ever imagine, all in one room. Just imagine the smell of hypocrisy. Just imagine the sulfur that permeates the air of these demons all in one room. Ugh, sick, sick. So here is the decision. How did Trump make his decision to choose JD Vance? By the fall of 2023, chatter was growing that Mr. Vance was a top contender to be Mr. Trump's running mate. But while advisors to both men had discussed the possibility informally, it had not become a topic of conversation between Mr. Trump and Mr. Vance. Mr. Trump plainly liked Mr. Vance. According to people close to the former president, the chemistry between the two, one of the ingredients in a hire that Mr. Trump values most, was clear. Mr. Vance had approached the relationship differently from a number of people who have grown close to Mr. Trump over the years. He valued scarcity. He did not call Mr. Trump constantly, and his list of requests was extremely limited. He sought help from Mr. Trump on only two matters. He asked him to endorse the businessman Bernie Moreno in his run for the Senate in Ohio, and he asked Mr. Trump to support a rail safety bill that Mr. Vance co-sponsored with the state's Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown. Mr. Trump did both. Mr. Vance was slow to believe Mr. Trump would actually pick him as a running mate. People close to him said his views started to change around the New Hampshire presidential primary in late January as he campaigned for Mr. Trump in the state and drew a warm response. He also began to fit the part more visibly. Mr. Trump commented to allies on how good Mr. Vance was looking, how his beard appeared more groomed, how his suits fit better, and how he'd lost weight. Mr. Vance had been working out and going for long runs. I think Trump is gay, because Trump is always commenting on the Aryan features of the white men he has around him. I've never heard him call a black man handsome. So I really think Trump is gay for big, pink penises. I really think Trump is gay. The way he talks about men and the way he likes big, strong men around him. He's always making these comments about men. So I think it's time for Trump to come out the closet, low key. Anyway, continuing here. Mr. Trump has also been solicitous of Mr. Vance's wife, Usha. So Mr. Trump is trying to smash his wife. Trump is trying to smash everybody's wife. I don't get why people bring their wives around Trump. All right, about a month ago, the Vances were at an event with Mr. Trump when he asked Usha how she liked political life. When Miss Vance gave an anodyne answer, Mr. Trump replied that his wife hated it too, adding an expletive. So the lady was like, political life is okay. It's not that bad. And then Trump just said, yeah, Melania hates life. She hates political life too. Every time she's with me, she says, I can't wait to get out of here. I think she's talking about the White House. Can't be about me. Anyway, Mr. Trump replied that his wife hated it too, adding an expletive. Miss Vance laughed at Mr. Trump's answer, according to a person briefed on the interaction. Mr. Vance's allies began an aggressive strategy to show he could be successful in two areas that preoccupied Mr. Trump's performing well in adversarial interviews on mainstream news channels and bringing in new financial supporters. Mr. Vance's advisors booked him on a slew of shows on CNN, NBC, ABC, and CBS, including one appearance that caught Mr. Trump's eye with the CNN anchor Wolf Blitzer shortly after Mr. Trump was convicted in his Manhattan criminal trial. Mr. Vance was the first vice presidential hopeful to show up in court to support Mr. Trump, and he stepped up his aggressive televised defense of Mr. Trump after the conviction. Mr. Vance helped pave the way for Mr. Trump with some Silicon Valley donors. He spent months working on David Sacks, an entrepreneur whom Mr. Vance has called one of the closest confidants in politics, to support Mr. Trump. That effort resulted in a $12 million event for the Trump campaign. Mr. Sacks said at the event that it would never have happened without Mr. Vance's support, according to a person familiar with his remarks. Mr. Musk, one of the world's richest men and the owner of the website X, has emerged as a quiet ally of Mr. Vance's, according to two people briefed on their relationship. Mr. Musk has viewed Mr. Biden's re-election as an existential crisis for the nation and told Mr. Trump directly that he should choose Mr. Vance as his running mate, describing the Trump-Vance pairing as beautiful, according to one of the people with knowledge of their relationship. Mr. Musk did not respond to requests for a comment. Yet, it was Don Jr. and his allies who pushed Mr. Vance most insistently, publicly and privately. For most of the year, Mr. Trump's associates have said that the former president was not especially enamored of any of his VP choices, doubtful that any of them would make much of a difference to his chances in November. And yet, in recent weeks, he told people that he liked the idea of someone who could carry on his MAGA legacy, something Mr. Trump believed the two other top contenders, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida and Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota, were not as well positioned as Mr. Vance to accomplish. Mr. Trump continued playing Hamlet of sorts, polling nearly everyone he encountered about what they thought he should do. That was reminiscent of 2016 when Mr. Trump had told everyone for weeks that Mr. Pence was out of central casting, but still insisted he hadn't made up his mind and was receptive to last-minute pitches from allies of Newt Gingrich and Chris Christie. He ultimately offered the job to Mr. Pence while telling Mr. Christie that he hadn't done so before finally making the choice public. Imagine a Trump-Christie presidency. A Trump-Christie presidency. Okay. Or a Trump-Newt Gingrich presidency. Oh, that would have been epic. Would have been epic. All right, Mr. Trump listened to a number of last-minute efforts to block Mr. Vance's selection. The anti-Vance campaign was intense, widespread, and carried right up until the final hours before Mr. Trump announced his choice. Several major Republican donors, including the hedge fund magnate Ken Griffith, as well as the media mogul Rupert Murdoch, tried to persuade Mr. Trump not to choose Mr. Vance. A Griffin spokesman wouldn't address what he told Mr. Trump, saying only that there were a number of good options and that Mr. Trump and his team had been thoughtful. Mr. Murdoch even went so far as to dispatch senior executives and columnists at the New York Post to meet with Mr. Trump and dissuade him from picking Mr. Vance. Kellyanne Conway, Mr. Trump's 2016 campaign manager, who was also close to Melania Trump, argued privately that other options, such as Mr. Rubio, were better, according to several people with knowledge of her outreach effort. The Murdoch crowd lobbied aggressively for Mr. Burgum in private and in editorials in the New York Post. When the anti-Vance forces made their arguments to Mr. Trump, they focused on Mr. Vance's prior criticisms of the former president and on Mr. Vance's youth and inexperience. But in many cases, these GOP donors were motivated because they loathed Mr. Vance's ideology and policy positions, especially his staunch opposition to U.S. support for Ukraine against Russia. Old comments made by Mr. Vance about Mr. Trump began to circulate on social media and were put in front of the former president, who indicated to associates that they had given him pause. But Mr. Trump was repelled by a Daily Mail article describing Mr. Burgum weeping at various moments. That's something Trump don't like. Trump doesn't like weakness. If you cry, if you kiss your kids, if you show love to the weak, the innocent, if you actually have a heart, Trump says that's weakness, that's cowardice. Get it out of here, pussy. Anyway. Trump said, "When I see a man cry, I view it as weakness." Allies also brought to Mr. Trump's attention the fact that Mr. Burgum had signed one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the country, a point that could become a liability in the general election. Mr. Trump told associates that he viewed Mr. Rubio as disloyal for having campaigned in 2016 against Mr. Rubio's friend and mentor, Jeb Bush, and wondered whether he could be trusted. In the final days, all three leading candidates made direct pitches to Mr. Trump. Mr. Burgum let it be known that he had no interest in serving in another role in the Trump administration, a stance that did not play well with Mr. Trump, who had mused about making him the Secretary of Energy, according to two people briefed on the matter. I think any smart Republican should know that they should just be waiting Trump out. Listen, there will always be Republicans amongst us because the poor will always be with us. But if you're a Republican right now, I do not understand why you're still hitching your wagon to the Trump train. It's a sinking ship. He's going to lose in November. He lost the last election by a wide margin. He's losing in criminal and civil court. His reputation among historians will be that of the worst president in U.S. history. Why are Republicans still lining up to jump into the pigsty, pig pen, whatever? Why are they lining up to get covered in mud and garbage? This is what I don't understand. This is what I don't understand. But I also have to remember that a lot of Republicans actually, deep down inside, are cucks for BBC. And many of them, behind closed doors, watch their wives get impaled by the largest, blackest African penises you could ever imagine. So it's not a surprise that guys who secretly want their own wives railed on by Tyrone and Daquan also want to, be paled on and railed on in public as well. I think they have some sick humiliation fetish. I think the Republicans, to some degree, snicker behind closed doors about the type of stuff they're doing and then say, I can't believe we're actually getting away with it. We're so bad. We're so naughty. Somebody punish me. And then they go grab all the toys that Diddy used on Cassie to then have freak-offs amongst themselves. This is the only way I can rationalize the sort of craziness the Republicans do. They're hitching their wagon once again to a sinking ship. The Trump train is almost over. Trump is so popular, guys. Trump is so beloved by the American people. He walks outside and gets shot at. That's the climate we're in right now with the Trump MAGA movement. Yet and still, we still see Republicans willingly line up to be involved in the fuckery. And anybody who has worked with Trump, a lot of them end up in jail themselves. They end up disbarred from practicing law. And then after that, they don't even want to work in government again. And they all say negative things about the guy that they were hired by, Trump. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. The cuckery befuddles me. The cuckery befuddles me. Anyway, Mr. Vance got flued out to Mar-a-Lago late last week aboard the plane of Steve Witkoff, a real estate investor and one of Mr. Trump's few close friends. When word got back to Tucker Carlson a few weeks ago that Mr. Trump might be wavering on Mr. Vance, he intervened. Mr. Carlson, who was visiting Australia on a speaking tour, phoned Mr. Trump and delivered an apocalyptic warning, according to two people briefed on their conversation. He told Mr. Trump that Mr. Rubio could not be trusted, that he would work against him and would try to lead America into nuclear war. Mr. Carlson, who declined to comment for this article, told Mr. Trump that Mr. Burgum could not be trusted either. Mr. Carlson told Mr. Trump in that June phone call that he believed that if he chose a neocon as his VP, an abbreviation for Republicans who favor using U.S. power to implant democracy abroad, then the U.S. intelligence agencies would have every incentive to assassinate Mr. Trump in order to get their preferred president. He also warned against listening to the advice of allies of Mr. Carlson's former employer, Mr. Murdoch. When your enemies are pushing a running mate on you, Mr. Carlson told Trump, referring to the Murdoch empire, it's a pretty good sign you should ignore them. Okay, so that's how JD Vance ended up getting picked. Essentially, all the people in Trump's inner circle, all the white guys, all the horrible humans that you see around basically said, don't pick that Negra, don't pick a woman, pick the whitest guy you know who has a lot of billionaire friends who are gonna, basically fund our campaign so we can continue to be horrible, wicked human beings. So I'm gonna look at the poll results. Poll results, JD Vance. All right, 60% said chess move. I would like to know, how is this a chess move? I would like to know, how is this a chess move? But 60% said chess move. All right, I'm gonna read something else here about JD Vance, because in all the articles, nobody has mentioned one thing that I think is a big thing to think about with JD Vance, and it's his belief in the great replacement theory. Republican Senate candidates promote replacement theory. Now, if you don't know what the great replacement theory is, I'm gonna put it up in a poll here. A lot of y'all said JD Vance, this is a chess move. I'm gonna end the poll right here. Let y'all live with that. 60% said chess move, 40% said trash pick. Trying to understand. So, JD Vance, and other conservative all right. I'm just going to say this. Hold on, wait. Let's make it something else. I'm going to make this more palatable. Conservative Republicans believe Jews and globalists are purposely sending blacks to white countries to replace them. All right. Conservative Republicans believe Jews and globalists are purposely sending blacks to white countries to replace them and other minority groups. This is the great replacement theory that many Republican politicians endorse, and many right-wing white supremacists, terrorists write about in their manifestos. So, JD Vance supports this idea. JD Vance supports the idea that the Jews, the globalists, and many other Republicans also support this idea as well, that the Jews, the globalists, the global capitalistic elites want to flood European and Western countries with brown-skinned minorities, particularly black people, to replace the white group, the white predominant group in that society. All right, so I have to ask my right-wing conservative, crazy, reactionary, cucked out audience this. The great replacement theory is true. The great replacement theory is true. I want to know what y'all think. I would love to know what my racist, cucked out Republican audience thinks about the great replacement theory. Because y'all love Trump. Y'all love sucking big white cock from Trump. Y'all love being cucked out by these capitalists who don't care about any of us. I would like to know what y'all think while I read this article here about JD Vance supporting the great replacement theory. So, Republican Senate candidates promote replacement theory. So, let's read here. This is from PBS, published on May 17th, 2022. So, several mainstream Republican Senate candidates are drawing on the great replacement conspiracy theory, once confined to the far-right fringes of U.S. politics, to court voters this campaign season, promoting the baseless notion that there is a plot to diminish the influence of white people in America. In some cases, the comments have gone largely overlooked given the hardline immigration rhetoric that has become commonplace among conservatives during the Trump era. But a weekend mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, that may have been inspired by the racist theory is drawing new attention to the GOP's growing embrace of white nationalist creed. 3 weeks ago in Arizona, Republican Senate candidate Blake Masters accused Democrats of trying to flood the nation with millions of immigrants to change the demographics of our country. Once again, let's put this in the face. This is what Republicans believe. Republican Senate candidates, Republicans believe that there is a somehow master conspiracy plot to flood America, flood Europe, flood Western nations with dark-skinned brown people who will change the demographics of the nation, to change the culture of the nation, and this is being orchestrated by the Jews. This is why those people in Charlottesville were carrying tiki torches saying the Jews will not replace us. It's not that the Jews themselves are coming. They're saying that the Jews are opening the floodgates for all of the migrants and illegals who are brown-skinned, dark-skinned people, black people as well, to enter the nation. All right? So, let's see. Yep. We have my comment section, once again, racist as hell. Got one vote, and somebody said the great replacement theory is true. Once again, I have failed as a YouTuber. I have failed as a YouTuber that I have a right-wing, conservative, racist, Nazi audience. But I'm going to continue pushing my line. Let's continue here. So, 3 weeks ago in Arizona, Republican Senate candidate Blake Masters accused Democrats of trying to flood the nation with millions of immigrants to change the demographics of our country. A few days later in Missouri, Senate hopeful Eric Schmitt, the state attorney general, said Democrats were fundamentally trying to change this country through illegal immigration. And in Ohio, Republican Senate nominee JD Vance accused Democrats of trying to transform the electorate. Water break. Warning of an immigrant invasion, Vance told Fox News that Democrats have decided that they can't win re-election in 2022 unless they bring a large number of new voters to replace the voters that are already here. Some of the Republican campaigns denied that their statements amounted to replacement theory, but among the experts, there is little question. 5 experts on hate speech who reviewed the Republican candidates' comments confirmed that they promote the baseless, racist theory, even though the Republicans don't mention race directly. Comments like these demonstrate 2 essential features of great replacement conspiracy theory. They predict racial doomsday, saying that it is all part of an orchestrated master plan. It's only the language that has been softened, said American University professor Brian Hughes, associate director of the Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab. The basic story they tell is the same one we see in white supremacist chats across the internet. An enemy is orchestrating doom for white Americans by plotting to fill the country with non-whites. Indeed, a mainstream interpretation of replacement theory in the U.S. baselessly suggests Democrats are encouraging immigration from Latin America so more like-minded potential voters replace traditional Americans, says Mark Pitcavage, senior research fellow at the Anti-Defamation League Center on Extremism. Such a message has become a central component of the modern-day conservative movement's appeal to voters. Former President Donald Trump repeatedly warned of an immigrant invasion on the southern border, and he was slow to condemn white supremacy throughout his presidency. Shortly after taking office, Trump shared a social media post from someone with the username White Genocide TM. Replacement theory is being investigated as a motivating factor in the Buffalo supermarket shooting, which killed 10 black people and left 3 other people injured. President Joe Biden condemned replacement theory directly and those who spread it, although he did not name names, after meeting with victims' families Tuesday in Buffalo. Hate that through the media and politics, the internet has radicalized angry, alienated, lost, and isolated individuals into falsely believing that they will be replaced. That's the word, replaced by others, by people who don't look like them, Biden charged. I call on all Americans to reject the lie, the Democratic president continued, and I condemn those who spread the lie for power, political gain, and for profit. Representative Liz Cheney, who was ousted from House Republican leadership for her her outspoken criticism of Trump, blamed her own party on Monday for enabling white nationalism, white supremacy, and anti-Semitism. History has taught us that what begins with words and ends is in far worse. Cheney tweeted, GOP leaders must renounce and reject these views and those who hold them. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell was asked 3 times Tuesday in different ways about replacement theory, if leaders have to speak out about it or believe it themselves, and declined to fully respond. Well, certainly, the episode of this horrible episode in Buffalo is a result of a completely deranged young man who ought to suffer severe as possible penalty under the law, he said. Asked about Biden's call to reject the lie, McConnell shifted responsibility more broadly. Racism of any sort is abhorrent in America and ought to be stood up to everybody, both Republicans, Democrats, all Americans. In a poll released last week, the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research found that 1 in 3 Americans believes an effort is underway to replace U.S.-born Americans with immigrants for electoral gain. So this is a widespread conspiracy theory amongst people. Unfortunately, the American electorate is very dumb. Very dumb. Fox News' most popular personality, Tucker Carlson, has been one of the theory's biggest proponents. A study of 5 years' worth of Carlson's show by the New York Times found 400 instances in which he talked about Democratic politicians and others seeking to force demographic change through immigration. But so far, at least, less attention has been focused on Republican candidates preparing to face voters in the coming weeks and months who have, in some cases, promoted the theory again and again. In interviews with conservative national television and radio over the last year, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson has called replacement theory the Democrats' grand plan. I've got to believe they want to change the makeup of the electorate, he told a Minneapolis area conservative radio host last month. Johnson condemned the horrific Buffalo attack on social media, while campaign spokesperson Alex Henning called it a lie that he supports replacement theory. The senator has spoken extensively on the inhumanity of the Biden administration's open borders policy, not some racist theory, she said. In Missouri, at least 2 Republicans vying for the Republican Senate nomination have made similar statements more recently. While touring the U.S.-Mexico border last month, former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens said that immigrants crossing over illegally were flooding into all of the 50 states, and that includes Missouri. What's also very clear is that Joe Biden's policies are an assault on the entire idea of America, Greitens said. He's wiping out the distinction between citizens and non-citizens, and he's doing it on purpose. A week later, Schmidt, Greitens' Republican rival, claimed that tens of millions of immigrants were crossing into the U.S. illegally because of Biden's policies. He said Democrats were intentionally encouraging illegal immigration for their own benefit. They are fundamentally trying to change this country through their illegal immigration policy, Schmidt told conservative commentator Glenn Beck. On Tuesday, Schmidt criticized reporting that he had promoted replacement theory as woke journalism. I'll never stop fighting for border security or calling out the Democrats' radical agenda. We've got a country to save, he tweeted. Greitens ignored questions about replacement theory, but called the mass shooting in Buffalo truly horrific in a written statement. In Arizona, Masters has warned throughout his campaign of a Democratic plot to transform the U.S. electorate. Obviously, the Democrats, they hope to just change the demographics of our country, Masters told the Patriot Edition podcast last month. They hope to import an entirely new electorate. Then they can call you a racist and a bigot. Yeah, you're being pretty racist thinking that, number one, federally, it's against the law for non-citizens to vote. And if there were less white people in America, why is that a problem? Somebody explain to me how less white people being in America is a problem. Since when does the race of a people correlate to the greatness of a nation? If we believe that a certain amount of white people in a place makes America great, that's racist to begin with. There is nothing inherently great about white people. There's nothing inherently great about black people either. It's insane to think that the great replacement theory is actually being supported by so many Republicans, so many conservatives, and they seem to fall in line with it too. All right. In Ohio, Vance has already secured a place on the November ballot. He won Trump's endorsement after embracing many of the former president's hardline views, including those related to immigration. Vance told Breitbart News last month that Democrats are trying to give 15 million immigrants in the country illegally the right to vote. They are trying to transform the electorate of this country, he said. He made similar comments days later at a town hall in Portsmouth, Ohio. Shortly after Biden was inaugurated, congressional Democrats proposed legislation that would include an 8-year pathway to citizenship for the estimated 11 million people living in the country illegally. But the proposal has stalled and has little chance of clearing Congress. Now, of course, Vance said, you're accused of being a racist to even point this out. We get to decide. The people get to decide how we do or do not transform the country. The Vance campaign declined to comment. All right, so JD Vance is a proponent of great replacement theory, the false BS idea that Jews, globalists, elites, capitalists are purposely importing black, dark-skinned people from other countries to go to Western nations to get rid of white people. It's false. It's not real. It's not real. But JD Vance believes it. And many other Republicans believe it. Once again, I'm very shocked that I have a right-wing audience that believes this stuff. One person selected yes. I'm still disappointed. Anyway, enough of JD Vance. I'm going to get this guy out of here. As far as the votes, once again, y'all thought it's a chess move for this guy to be picked. I don't know what he's really going to bring to the table. It's sort of like he doesn't hurt and he doesn't help. I guess it really depends on what he does in the debate. His job is just to do very well in the debate against Kamala. All right, so I want to read an article about can the Democrats replace Biden. There are many people still talking about Biden needs to get out of here. He's too old to do it. And a younger candidate, a newer candidate will be better suited against Trump. I don't think so. I disagree. I think it would be better for him to stay in the race. But yeah, let's go here. So, let's go here. DNC slows Biden's nomination, party discontent. DNC slows Biden's nomination as party discontent persists. The Democratic National Committee pushed back its nomination plans by a week as unease continued to grow, with Representative Adam B. Schiff of California calling for President Biden to drop out. So this was published on July 17th, 2024, written by Reed J. Epstein for the New York Times. Let's go. So the Democratic National Committee is pushing back by a week its plans to nominate President Biden for re-election in a virtual roll call as the party's voters and many of its top officials continue to express discontent about heading into the general election with him atop their ticket. Top party officials announced on Wednesday that the virtual roll call for Mr. Biden would take place during the first week of August, an accommodation to Democrats who had protested about plans that would have started the voting as soon as next week. Mr. Biden's weak debate showing his uneven public appearances and his struggles in the polls have raised deep worries within his party. Nearly 2/3 of Democrats want him to quit the race, according to a survey released on Wednesday by the Associated Press and the NORC. Congressional Democrats have also warned that Mr. Biden's sagging political standing will make it far harder for them to win down-ballot races in November. Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the Democratic Majority Leader, and Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York, the Minority Leader, spoke and both agreed to push the party to hold off the start to its nominating process, according to a person familiar with their involvement. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, the co-chairman of the party's Rules Committee, which determines when and how the nomination will proceed, called Jen O'Malley Dillon, the Biden campaign chief, on Tuesday afternoon to inform her that the roll call should be delayed, according to a person made aware of the call. And on Wednesday, Representative Adam B. Schiff, Democrat of California, a candidate for Senate in the state and a top ally of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, called on Mr. Biden to drop out of the race. Our nation is at a crossroads, he told the Los Angeles Times. A second Trump presidency will undermine the very foundation of our democracy. And I have very serious concerns about whether the president can defeat Donald Trump in November. I've never seen a party so committed to shooting themselves in the foot. I don't understand why the Democrats, Biden has a bad 90-minute debate, and they call for him to step down. Meanwhile, Trump is a convicted rapist, a convicted felon, an insurrectionist, a corrupt person, overall smelly dude who farts in court. His wife doesn't want to hold his hand, and y'all want to continue to hype him up. I don't understand this. There's no Republican at all saying Trump should drop out of the race. Trump needs to back out because he has all of these things working against him. But Biden has a bad performance. And some people say it's more than just a bad performance. They also say it's like, him, flubbing his interviews and stuff like that. This is the thing, like Biden has a stutter. There's a very good Frontline documentary on Biden that talked about when he was a kid, he was kind of embarrassed because he had a stutter. He's a stuttering old man. But he's better than the stuttering old liar that Trump is. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, continuing here. Our nation is at a crossroads, said Adam Schiff. We need to consider what we have to do to defeat Trump in November. So Representative Jared Huffman of California, who in recent days has organized fellow Democrats to pressure the DNC to delay its process, called the party's new timeline a positive step, but said it was not likely to alleviate concerns about Mr. Biden's viability. It's a heck of a lot better than a jammed process that will tear us apart next week, Mr. Huffman said. This whole idea of jamming it through in mid-July crumbled under pressure, and that's, I think, a good thing. Mr. Huffman said he had helped persuade dozens of congressional Democrats to sign a letter protesting a nominating process that could have started as soon as Monday. Given the timeline the party announced on Wednesday, Mr. Huffman said he will not be sending the letter. Okay, so this is the thing. This is the thing about this, right? Biden is old, of course. But once again, I think the Democrats should be coalescing around this man and not tearing him down. This is bad strategy and bad optics. And whatever they do, when they have the convention, they need to seem unified. We watched the RNC, and at the RNC, all the states basically gave all their delegates to Trump. It needs to be the same thing for Biden. Now, the Democrats are a bigger tent party than the Republicans, when the Republicans, by and large, are just the conservative or angry, small dick white conservatives across America, who are hateful against anybody who doesn't look like them or think like them. You know what I mean? So, of course, in the Democrats, you're going to have more diversity of thought. Plus, it's a left-wing section, too. Or they do have a left-wing section, which is antagonistic towards the center because they feel like the center has cheated them out of power and all that sort of stuff. You get what I'm saying? So, yeah. I'm going to jump here. To this part. Can the Democrats replace Biden? Here's what to know. So this is a bit older article, but I still think it's good to read. So while it is possible, it will most likely lead to political upheaval in the party unless the president decides to step aside on his own terms. This was written by Adam Nagorny and Jennifer Medina, published on July 8th, 2024. A once politically far-fetched question, can President Biden be replaced at the top of the Democratic Party presidential ticket, has taken on new urgency after Mr. Biden's halting debate performance in late June against former President Donald J. Trump. The short answer is yes, assuming Mr. Biden decides on his own to step aside. But if Mr. Biden decides not to step aside, the short answer is probably no. Either way, the process would be complicated and would open the door to political upheaval between now and when Democratic delegates gather to vote for a nominee at their convention in August. Mr. Biden has the power to leave the race and release all the pledged delegates he has accumulated, 3,894 of 3,937 committed so far, according to a tally by the Associated Press, during his march to the nomination. If he were to do so, those delegates would be free to vote for whomever they choose. That would lead to an open convention, a rarity in modern American politics. The prospect raises many questions. Could President Biden, should he drop out of the race, compel his delegates to support a candidate of his choosing? No, he could certainly endorse a successor, and that would count for something. But once the delegates are free, they are free. Loyalty to Mr. Biden, which runs deep, does not automatically extend beyond him. And there could be a floor fight over who would emerge as the nominee, highlighting already festering ideological divides in the party and potentially weakening a future Democratic candidate heading into the fall campaign. That's a horrible idea. It sounds absolutely horrible, but the biggest threat right now are the Democrats messing this up. They got this. They got the win in the bag as long as they keep Biden up there just until November 3rd. On November 4th, when they wake up and they have the victory, then they can talk about retiring him. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, what would that mean for Vice President Kamala Harris? Ms. Harris would most likely be one of probably a half dozen candidates vying for the presidential nomination, but her standing in the party is questionable after what many have seen as a rocky tenure and weak poll numbers. She also would not be assured the number 2 spot on the ticket, even if she wanted it, should Mr. Biden be replaced. What is the timeline for a decision? If there is one upside for Democrats about Mr. Biden's disastrous debate performance, is that it happened in June, rather than the weeks before the election, when debates traditionally have been held. There is time to act, which would not have been the case had this unfolded at a debate in September. The nominating convention in Chicago opens on August 19th, but the party approved rules to hold a virtual roll call before August 7th to work around an Ohio law that required all presidential candidates to be legally certified by that date in order to appear on the November ballot. So the window is narrowing. A total of 3,934 pledged delegates will vote on the first ballot. If a candidate receives a simple majority of 1,968, that person will be the nominee. Should Mr. Biden resist pressure to step aside, is there any way the party could move unilaterally to replace him? Well, never say never. There would seem a bit of wiggle room in the party's official rules. All delegates at the National Convention pledged to a presidential candidate shall in all good conscience reflect the sentiments of those who elected them. They read. All right, so in theory, note the good words, in all good conscience. It would appear that the Democratic Convention could vote for someone else. But this is not the Democratic Party of 1968. When the rules permitted party bosses to impose their will, in fact, the rules were rewritten after that specifically to make the party a much more free-flowing organization. This is not the old days, said Elaine Kamarak, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution, a Washington think tank and an expert on convention rules and procedures. There is no such thing as party leaders. There's no people with the power to take away this nomination. The only way that could happen without Biden's consent is if a majority of about 4,000 delegates decided that he shouldn't be the nominee, that he had somebody better, she said. All right. So, who might be considered to replace him? In addition to Ms. Harris, rumored names have included Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, Governor Gavin Newsom of California, Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, and Governor Andy Beshear of Kentucky. However, Ms. Whitmer and others have said they will not run even if Mr. Biden steps aside. Also worth mentioning are Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, and Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. What happens if Mr. Biden were to withdraw after the convention? The Democratic National Committee's official procedures for the convention, adopted in 2022, give the committee the authority to choose a new candidate if either member of the ticket, the president or vice presidential nominee, withdraws or dies. The party's national chairman, Jamie Harrison, will consult with Democratic leaders in Congress and in the Democratic Governors Association and make a report to the DNC, but the members themselves would have the final say. Interesting. Once again, it would be a disaster, a total disaster, if the Biden-Harris ticket were broken up and the Democrats had an open convention and all hell would break loose. I just think this is bad news to happen. Listen, man, just let it be. You got Biden, stick with it, and see how it goes. It's working in his favor. Once again, this is not a channel where we love Biden, where we love the Democrats, nothing like that. But it's looking a lot more in his favor than it's looking for Trump. Trump walks outside, gets shot at. You get what I'm saying? That's not cool. It's not a good look. Not a good look. Continuing here. So the Republicans love to lie. Republicans just love to lie. We're going to close this poll. And I'm going to try something new. Can I start a Q&A? I can't do the Q&A. No, I can't do the Q&A. All right. So I'm gonna just put a basic up poll. I'm gonna put a basic up poll here. All right. All right. Do Republicans care their leaders openly lie. Do Republicans care their parties, I just got to make this clear for people, their party's leaders openly lie? Because we're going to be fact-checking the RNC. We're going to be fact-checking the RNC right now. So, day one of the RNC, reading from pbs.org, fact-checking all of the crazy claims all the worst people in the world said on stage. July 16, 2024. So, Milwaukee. Wearing a white bandage on his right ear, former President Donald Trump appeared at the Republican National Convention's opening night, his first public showing since the attempted assassination on July 13th. Cheers for a fight, fight, fight erupted from the floor of party delegates, a nod to what Trump yelled with a fist bump as Secret Service agents ushered him off the Butler, Pennsylvania stage after he was shot in the ear 2 days before. Trump is scheduled to address the convention on its final night, July 18th. Trump's arrival was one of several headlines from the convention's first day. Trump revealed his vice presidential pick, U.S. Senator JD Vance, Republican out of Ohio, and the two sat together with Trump's family and former Fox News host Tucker Carlson for the final hour of speeches. Also Monday, the federal judge overseeing the classified documents criminal indictment against Trump dismissed the case, saying the appointment of a special counsel violated the U.S. Constitution. The special prosecutor has announced an appeal. The convention's first night focused on the economy. Speakers including Senators Katie Britt of Alabama and Tim Scott of South Carolina, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, businessman David Sachs, model Amber Rose, and Teamsters President Sean O'Brien. So, let's do the fact-checking here. So, Senator Katie Britt, Republican out of Alabama, says, under President Trump, we had the strongest economy in history. That's false. That's false. It's false. The strongest evidence in favor of this assertion is the unemployment rate. During Trump's presidency, the unemployment rate fell to levels untouched in 5 decades. But his successor, President Joe Biden, matched or exceeded those levels. However, the annual increases in gross domestic product, the sum of a country's economic activity, were broadly similar under Trump to what they were during the final 6 years under his predecessor, Barack Obama. And GDP growth under Trump was well below that of previous presidents. Okay. So, wage growth also didn't set records under Trump. Adjusted for inflation, wages began rising under the Obama years and kept increasing under Trump. But these were modest compared with the 2% a year increase seen in the 1960s. Another metric, the growth rate in personal consumption per person, adjusted for inflation, wasn't higher under Trump than previous presidents. For many families, this statistic serves an economic activity bottom line, determining how much they can spend on food, clothing, housing, healthcare, and travel. In Trump's 3 years in office through January 2020, real consumption per person grew by 2% a year. Of the 30 non-overlapping 3-year periods from 1929 to the end of his presidency, Trump's periods ranked in the bottom third. So the economy did not get better under Trump. This is one of the stupidest talking points that black Republicans make and other people make. They say, bruh, under Trump, we got money, bruh. Bruh, under Trump, we got stimulus checks, bruh. Bruh, under Trump, everybody had jobs, bruh. It ain't true. It ain't true. The economy under Trump actually did worse. Actually did much worse. Now, a lot of that has to do with the pandemic. Yes, we can acknowledge that. Yes, we can acknowledge that. But it's not like Trump was whipping up economic miracles in the Oval Office. Stop it. Stop the lies. Cap. All right, continuing here. Britt, grocery prices are up more than 21%. Electricity is up 31%. Gas is up 48%. Mortgage rates have more than doubled, and rent is skyrocketing. This is mostly true. Mostly true. The price of groceries has risen by 21.5% in the more than 3.5 years since Biden was inaugurated in January 2021. For electricity, Britt overstates the rise when you compare the same month in 2021 with the same month in 2024. This is necessary because energy prices tend to rise in the summer, so comparing January 2021 to June 2024 would show a higher price rise. From January 2021 to January 2024, the price of electricity rose by 27 7.2%. But Brit understated the rise in gasoline prices. It's up 55%. So mortgage rates have more than doubled because of rate increases by the Federal Reserve to curb inflation. The average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was 2.73% in January 2021, but 6.89% in July 2024. Skyrocketing is a subjective term, but on Biden's watch, rent has increased by 21.5%. So it's mostly true. Things are getting more expensive, but that doesn't have much to do with Biden. It has to do with the Federal Reserve. They have to raise interest rates because after the Great Recession, the interest rates went low, made it easier to borrow money, spurred the economy, and then we had the greatest economic growth of all time, right? From the years 2008 until like 2020, right? So yeah, with that being said, the Federal Reserve sort of made it hard for all of us. So another crazy Republican woman, Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, she says, Donald Trump signed the largest tax cut in American history. That's false. False. When it was passed in 2017, Trump's tax cut was inflation-adjusted dollars, the fourth largest since 1940. And as a percentage of gross domestic product, it ranks seventh in history, according to figures published by the Treasury Department. So here's Here's a governor right here. Governor Glenn Youngkin, Republican out of Virginia. Women, Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans all saw record low employment under Donald Trump. Half true, 50% true. This leaves out context. Of these groups, the low under Trump remains the undisputed record only for Asian Americans. So basically what he's saying is like the only minorities that got jobs under Trump were Asian Americans, not Hispanics, not Black Americans, not women. It's Asian Americans. For Black Americans and women, the record low set under Trump was subsequently exceeded under Biden, his successor and opponent. And for whites and Latinos, the record low unemployment under Trump was matched under Biden. Interesting. Avery Adams said, I'm just getting home and I see Simon is on the left tonight. LOL, salute to Simon and the chat. Okay, all right. Well, we chopping it up about the Republicans. We just reading what the Republicans are saying. What are they saying? Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican out of Georgia. She says, they claim that our economy is thriving, yet hundreds of thousands of American-born workers lost their jobs these past few years. Mostly false. Big old lie. People are constantly leaving jobs and taking new ones, but the average monthly number of layoffs was higher under Trump than it's been under Biden. This is from PBS.org, guys. PBS, government funded. Leaving out the coronavirus pandemic months of March 2020 to December 2021, the number of monthly layoffs under Trump averaged 1.81 million. Under Biden, then that number has been 1.52 million. Greene's focus on American-born workers is a version of a Republican talking point that paints Biden as being better for foreign workers than native-born Americans, but it is misleading. All right. Since Biden took office in early 2021, the number of foreign-born Americans who are employed has risen by about 5.6 million. But over the same period, the number of native-born Americans employed has increased by almost 7.4 million. The unemployment rate for native-born workers under Biden is comparable to what it was during the final two pandemic years of Trump's presidency. So, entrepreneur David Sachs, this is what the entrepreneur David Sachs says. Democrats have set off the worst inflation since Jimmy Carter. False. He's off by one president, Ronald Reagan. The peak annual inflation rate under Biden was 8% in 2022. To find annual inflation that high requires going back to 1981, when Reagan, a Republican, presided over 10.3% inflation. Before Reagan, Carter, a Democrat, did see inflation at 11.3% in 1979 and 13.5% in 1980. The only other presidents since the immediate post-World War II era who experienced annual inflation above 8% were also Republicans. Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford, who presided over 11.1% inflation in 1974 and 9.1% in 1975. Now, I'm going to keep it trail. Saying that Reagan had the highest inflation number only a year after taking office when he kicked out Jimmy Carter, I feel like that's unfair. That's not fair to Reagan. That's not fair. So saying that's false, You get what I'm saying? Because like Obama inherited a bad economy after George W. Bush. So nobody would say, man, that first year of Obama was hell because everything was so expensive. I lost my job, I lost my car, I lost my home, all that sort of stuff. It was only been 1 year. So yeah, saying that Reagan had the worst inflation 1 year after coming after Jimmy Carter, who had years of bad inflation. You get what I'm saying? That's not good. Anyway, continuing here. So conservative activist Charlie Kirk, home ownership is now out of reach unless you make over 106,000 US dollars. True, based on one analysis. That's one thing Charlie Kirk said, that's true. An analysis released by the real estate tracking company Zillow in February said home shoppers today need to make more than $106,000 to comfortably afford a home. The study defined affordability as the income needed to afford the total monthly payment of the typical home after a 10% down payment. The total monthly payment is based on the monthly mortgage payment, insurance, property taxes, and annual maintenance costs of the home. All right, so it is true. It is true. You need $106,000 to buy a home. Model Amber Rose, Americans were wealthier under Trump. Half true. Half true. The best measures for American household wealth are inflation-adjusted median household income and inflation-adjusted per capita disposable personal income. Wealth-specific statistics from the Census Bureau lag. The first measure offers a mixed picture when comparing Biden and Trump. The high of $78,250 came in 2019 when Trump was president, but it began falling in 2020, his final year in office, and continued to fall under Biden in 2021 and 2022. Data for 2023 is not yet available. Here's Amber Rose as well. I'm not gonna lie. Amber Rose still looks good for her age. I ain't even gonna lie. We would like to take that for a ride at least once. I want to see what Wiz saw. I want to know what Kanye saw. You get what I'm saying? I'm sure she could throw a bat, and she's a throat goat. I'm pretty sure she's a throat goat, but let her never speak about politics. She's reverting back to her old white woman ways. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, Avery Adams says that's after tax, 106K? Possibly. All right. Is Amber Rose a tier 4? Amber Rose is tier 3. She is a tier 3 bunny. You can't be tier 4 with face tattoos. Can't be tier 4. All right. Still 2022. Median household income under Biden was higher than it was in either of Trump's first 2 years, 2017 and 2018. Biden fares better against Trump using the second statistic, disposable personal income per capita. The measure hit a high under Trump just before the coronavirus pandemic at $48,014. By the time the pandemic recovery began in January 2022, under Biden, the amount was virtually identical. But by May 2024, it had risen to $50,491. That's 5.2% higher today than it was during Trump's best pre-pandemic month, after accounting for inflation. Once again, all the people saying there was more money under Trump, bruh. We were balling under Trump, bruh. Man, under Trump, man, I was living like a king. None of that's true. None of that's true. By and large. So that's fact-checking day 1 of the Republican National Convention. All the worst people you know coming together to celebrate the man with one ear. You know the old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Avery says, I can't wait for these next 4 years, man. I really want to know, man. What is it? What's the feeling? I'm going to keep on taking polls. Who will win? Let's do one more poll before we get up out of here. Trump or Biden? Who will win? Y'all let me know in the chat. Y'all keep on letting me know in the chat. Who will win? Trump or Biden? Y'all let me know. Anyway, let's keep on fact-checking these crazy Republicans, the worst people you know. All correlated, all congregated in one space. The worst people you know, all in one space. Look at them. A den full of rats and demons and bastards. Look at all these horrible people. Horrible people. Fact-checking day 2 of the 2024 Republican National Convention. So, the Republican National Convention's second night sounded false alarms about a Democratic plot to to turn migrants into voters and invocations of divine intervention in preventing President Donald Trump's assassination. The party offered a lineup of Senate candidates and Americans who said President Joe Biden's immigration and crime policies contributed to their loved one's death. Oh, the migrants killed my baby. Some speakers swiped at Vice President Kamala Harris, often mispronouncing her first name by emphasizing its second syllable and mocking her as the border czar, which exaggerated the scope of her authority. All right, so they're calling, the Republicans are doing the old racist thing. What's your name? Kamala? Kabala? All right. With Democrats divided over whether Biden should remain as their nominee, Republicans displayed party unity with speeches from former Trump primary rivals Nikki Haley, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and Vivek Ramaswamy. Former Trump administration officials Dr. Ben Carson and Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders credited the hand of God in saving Trump's life from an assassination attempt. All right. Here are fact checks of claims about immigration, national security, and crime from day 2. We're fact checking the Republicans. But before I do that, let me jump into the comments. Avery says, leading in most all battle states, and that's from CNN yesterday. It's over, Vince Carter. That's what y'all are saying? That's what y'all are saying? 100% of my comments are Trump supporters. 100% of my comments, 100% of my supporters, 100% of the people in my comment section. I'm pretty sure they're Europores, the Europeans, who don't know anything about American politics and generally just are racist and anti-black. That's my assumption for the people that voted in the poll. So let's go here. Carrie Lake, Arizona Senate candidates. Just last week, Ruben Gallego voted to let millions of people who poured into our country illegally cast a ballot in this upcoming election. False, lies of Manelli. All right. So, Avery says the RNC has been great, but I haven't missed a beat. Kind of cheesy. Y'all let me know if you're waiting for that Candace Owens pop out. You think Candace Owens gonna pop out? You think Amber Rose gonna come back? Anyway, U.S. Rep. Ruben Gallego, Democrat out of Arizona, did not vote to allow millions of people in the country illegally to vote in the 2024 election. Federal law already bans non-citizens from voting in federal elections. Gallego voted against the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, which requires people to provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. When Gallego voted against the bill, he said in a statement, "Of course, only U.S. citizens should vote." Gallego said the bill would create obstacles for Arizonans to vote because of the requirements to provide documentary proof of citizenship, such as a passport or birth certificate. All right, Rep. Steve Scalise, Republican out of Louisiana, unfortunately, said this: on the border, Biden and Harris opened it up to the entire world. Prisons are being emptied. False. More lies from Republican mouths. All right, the U.S. southern border is not open. A combination of hundreds of physical barriers, such as fences, surveillance technology, drones, and about 20,000 U.S. Border Patrol agents help limit who and what comes into the United States. Additionally, immigration officials at the border continue to enforce immigration law. U.S. immigration officials have arrested people with criminal convictions at the border, but there is no evidence that prisons are being emptied or that foreign countries are sending prisoners to the U.S. All right? Immigration officials arrested about 110,000 non-citizens with criminal convictions, whether in the U.S. or abroad, from fiscal years 2021 to 2024, federal data shows. That accounts for people stopped at and between ports of entry. This data includes about 4 months of Trump's administration. Not everyone was let in. The term non-citizens includes people who have had legal immigration status in the U.S. but were not U.S. citizens. The data reflects the people that the federal government knows about, but it's inexhaustive. Some countries don't share their criminal databases with the U.S. However, immigration experts previously told PolitiFact that despite the data's limitations, there is no evidence to support the statement. Going here to the comments, Avery says, I think they said no mail-in ballots either. Should that happen? People should be allowed to vote through mail-in ballots, voting on church. Hell, we need online voting, for real. All right, Nikki Haley said this. Kamala had one job, and that was to fix the border. Mostly false. Mostly false. In March 2021, President Joe Biden tasked Harris to work with officials in Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras to address the root causes motivating people to migrate to the United States. One of the ways we learned is that if you deal with the problems in a country, it benefits everyone. It benefits us. It benefits the people, and it grows the economies there, Biden said at a March 2021 meeting with Harris. Republicans began calling Harris the border czar soon after that. In April 2021, when a reporter asked Harris whether she would visit the border, she clarified that her role was not managing the border. The president has asked Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to address what is going on at the border, and he has been working very hard at that, and is showing some progress because of his hard work, Harris said at a roundtable. I have been asked to lead the issue of dealing with root causes in the Northern Triangle, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, similar to what then Vice President did many years ago. Harris reiterated this duty in June 2021 when she visited the border in El Paso, Texas with Mayorkas. In comments to reporters, Harris said she was addressing the root causes of migration predominantly out of Central America. Mayorkas, meanwhile, said, "It is my responsibility as the Secretary of Homeland Security to address the security and management of our border." Senator Tom Cotton, Republican out of Arkansas, Joe Biden gave migrants welfare and free hotels. Mostly false. False, false, false. They just be lying. Most immigrants living illegally in the U.S. are ineligible for benefits from federal programs. A valid Social Security number is needed to receive most federal benefits. Migrants are eligible for emergency medical care, and some women and children may qualify for food assistance. Additionally, certain immigrants in the U.S. illegally may qualify for state and local public assistance programs. But this type of medical and state assistance predates Biden's presidency. Certain nonprofit organizations provide shelter for migrants. These services can then be reimbursed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. The use of hotels near the border to house migrants did not begin with Biden. Previous administrations, including Trump's, have used hotel rooms to house children and families who enter the country illegally. FEMA has been reimbursing nonprofits for their services to migrants since 2019, when Trump's administration, during an uptick in immigration apprehensions, requested funding to go to migrant support services. DHS coordinates with nonprofits to avoid the greatest extent possible releasing non-citizens directly into border communities without immediate support. A 2023 Government Accountability Office report said. In 2021, the Biden administration entered a short-term contract with a Texas nonprofit organization to use hotel rooms to provide temporary shelter in case processing to migrant families. Under U.S. laws and a court settlement, immigration officials cannot detain minors, including those traveling with families. So here's another lie. Oh no, it's actually true. Okay, sorry. And Thunder, California mother. We have seen the highest number of fentanyl deaths during the Biden-Harris administration. This is true. So, drug overdose deaths have reached new highs during the Biden administration, a continuation of a trend that started under Barack Obama and continued under Trump. Thunder's 15-year-old son, Weston, died from a fentanyl overdose in February 2022, she told the crowd. National Institute on Drug Abuse data shows more than 73,800 overdose deaths from non-methadone synthetic opioids, mostly fentanyl, in 2022. In 2020, the years before Biden took office, 56,516 people died from these overdoses. It really is a war outside. People are falling out from fentanyl. 56,000 Americans. That's crazy. There were 3,105 in 2013. Thunder blamed open borders for her son's death. Fentanyl is smuggled mostly through official ports of entry and not by immigrants crossing at illegal points, or not by immigrants crossing at illegal crossing points, something like that. Anyway, national security. Here is Rep. Jim Blanks, a Republican out of Indiana. I've never been more ashamed than when Joe Biden's disastrous withdrawal of Afghanistan left 13 American heroes dead, and then he lied about it. Biden's explanation about the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan was publicly contradicted by high-ranking military figures. Banks is referring to the 2021 suicide bombing that killed 13 U.S. service members and about 170 Afghan civilians at Hamid Karzai International Airport's Abbey Gate. It followed the fall of Afghanistan's government under military pressure from the Taliban. Biden ordered the U.S. withdrawal in August 2021, saying the decision was based on the unanimous recommendation of civilian and military advisors. All right. The Secretary of State, the Defense Secretary, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, service chiefs, and commanders in the field. Their recommendation was that the safest way to secure the passage of the remaining Americans and others out of the country was not to continue with 6,000 troops on the ground in harm's way in Kabul, but rather to get them out through non-military means, Biden said. Biden added that his advisors agreed with his course. ABC's George Stephanopoulos asked Biden in an August 19, 2021 interview whether his military advisors did not tell you, no, we should just keep 2,500 troops. It's been a stable situation for the last several years. We can do that. We can continue to do that. Biden said, no one said that to me that I can recall. But when top generals testified under oath to Congress several weeks later, they said they had urged Biden to keep a few thousand in Afghanistan rather than withdrawing entirely. During a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing, General Kenneth Frank McKenzie, the commander of U.S. Central Command, didn't specify his recommendation to Biden, but said his advice was guided by his personal view that withdrawing forces entirely would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government. Governor Mark Milley, who chaired the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was asked whether he'd agreed with the 2,500 troop recommendation, and he said he did. Pressed to explain his interaction with Biden, Milley declined, saying, I'm not going to characterize the statement of the President of the United States. Going to the comments here. Avery says, I love how this article is wording the truth. LMAO, they are capping at the migrants. I have seen it with my own eyes in D.C. It's state-supported, not federal. The more migrants, the more drugs. LMAO, the migrants are a distraction and take up resources from those official ports, they claim. Avery then also said, Biden has blood on his hands for Afghanistan for sure. Wasted so much money, leaving entire military base and equipment. He is an idiot. We shouldn't lose no people over a withdrawal. Once again, I think, the facts are pretty clear that the drugs are not coming in from people strapping it to their chests or putting it in their bras or their girdles. It's coming in through the ports. It's coming in through all the, shipping containers in the Los Angeles port, Port of Miami, Port of New Orleans. That's where all the drugs are coming from. And it's a fact, they arrest the people. The people that they're arresting who are smuggling drugs into America are American citizens. American citizens, not illegal migrants. As far as the withdrawal of Afghanistan, y'all know how I feel about America's foreign policy. Whenever anybody, we get what we deserve for our foreign policy. So, nobody should die. Well, nobody should have been in Afghanistan to begin with. That's my opinion. Anyway, let's go here. Senator Rick Scott, Republican out of Florida. Under Donald Trump, we weren't at war. That's false. False. The U.S. remained at war in Afghanistan throughout Trump's presidency. There were about 2,500 service members left in Afghanistan and Iraq, respectively, at the end of his term in January 2021. Trump didn't enter the U.S. into a new sustained armed conflict within another country or seek a new congressional authorization to use military force. He frequently criticized American involvement in the Middle East and took steps to withdraw troops from Somalia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. But Trump used military force in other countries under the broad use of force authorization granted after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. For example, his administration ordered airstrikes and drone attacks, supplemented allied militaries with U.S. troops, deployed special operation forces in the Middle East and beyond, and ordered the killing of Iran's general Qasem Soleimani. Trump increased commitments and resources in Iraq and Syria to fight the militant Islamic State group, which included sending additional service members. Records show that during Trump's presidency, about 65 active duty service members died in hostile action. TV personality Savannah Chrisley, Hunter Biden is roaming around free and attending classified meetings. Okay. The White House denies Biden's son Hunter attends classified briefings, although we found a recent NBC News report that said Biden had joined some of his father's White House meetings after the June 27th presidential debate. It said nothing about him attending a classified meeting. Hunter Biden was recently convicted of 3 felonies in a gun-related case. NBC News reported July 2nd that Hunter Biden joined meetings with President Joe Biden and his top aides since his father returned to the White House from Camp David, Maryland, citing 4 people familiar with the matter. White House spokesman Andrew Bates told NBC News, Hunter came back with the president from their family weekend at Camp David and went with the president straight into speech prep, referring to Biden's preparation with aides for remarks about the Supreme Court's decision on presidential immunity. After Chris Lee's accusation, Bates told PolitiFact that Hunter Biden has not attended classified briefings. Bates also told PolitiFact that Hunter Biden lacks a security clearance and therefore cannot legally attend classified meetings. So, about crime, the thing that Republicans are so good at. The Republicans have got it right on crime, because leading your party with a felon shows that you really are tough on crime, right? Anyway, RNC video. It's not just big cities. Rising crime is a problem everywhere. Mostly false. Mostly false. Federal data shows that overall numbers of violent crimes, including homicides, has declined during Biden's presidency. Property crimes have risen, mostly because of motor vehicle thefts. The FBI data shows that overall violent crime rate, which includes homicide, rape, robbery, and aggravated assaults per 100,000 population, fell by 2.9% from 2020, Trump's final year as president, to 2021, Biden's first year in office. It fell an additional 1.6% between 2021 and 2022. The most recent year for which the FBI has released full data is 2022, but private sector analyses shows continued decline in crime. For instance, the Council on Criminal Justice, a nonpartisan think tank, samples reports from law enforcement agencies in several dozen cities to gauge crime data more quickly than the FBI. The council's data shows the declining trend for violent crime continued into 2023. Property crime has increased under Biden, though 3 of the 4 main categories the FBI tracks, larceny, burglary, and arson, were at or below their pre-pandemic level by 2022. The main exception has been motor vehicle theft, which rose 4% from 2020 to 2021 and 10.4% from 2021 to 2022. All right, so let's go on here. Okay. All right, so all I'm saying is that the RNC got the baddest pogs. They got the baddest pogs, but they got the worst politics. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. All right. Let's just read this last one here. Okay. All right, let's read this. This is important. All right. All right, let's read this right here. My guy Avery says, also, I'm surprised nobody brought up Ukraine at the RNC. Okay, we were talking about Ukraine earlier. JD Vance doesn't support Ukraine. JD Vance basically said, I don't care what happens to Ukraine. Those are his exact words. Very interesting. But we know how the Republicans feel about Ukraine. They like Putin. They like authoritarian dictators. They want Putin just to have all of... This is the thing. Y'all hate me. Y'all hate Simon Hill Keeps It Real. But if Trump wins, Putin most likely will take Ukraine and then take Hungary, and then I'll have to come back to America. So if y'all want to keep me out of America, don't vote for Trump. Don't vote for Trump unless you want me back in America. Because I swear to God, at the very instant I see a Russian tank in Budapest, I'm gone. All right. Let's read this here. So, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican out of Minnesota, Vice President Kamala Harris even promoted a fund to release the criminals from jail. One criminal Kamala Harris freed in Minneapolis went on to murder a man in St. Paul, Minnesota. That's half true. So, Sean Michael Tillman was sentenced to life in prison for the May 2022 murder of Demetri Ellis Strong in St. Paul. Before the murder, Tillman committed multiple indecent exposure felonies in 2016 and 17. He was convicted in November 2018 and was sentenced to 39 months in prison. The Minnesota Freedom Fund, which provides bail funding and immigration bonds to those who can't afford it, paid Tillman's $2,000 bail in April 2022. In June 2020, during the protests against the murder of George Floyd, Harris tweeted in support of the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. The organization raised $35 million amid widespread celebrity attention. Harris did not free Tillman and does not have the power as vice president. Harris has not endorsed the organization since. Yeah, Avery, you're right. There is no such thing as half true, because what the Republicans did was basically lie. That is a lie. They said Kamala Harris let a black man go free out of jail who ended up killing somebody later. All Kamala did was tweet that this organization that helps people that don't have the money to pay their bail, she said, hey, this is a pretty good organization. And Republicans said, Kamala let a murderer walk free. This is how Republicans lie. And how the media, a little bit, covers up for Republican lies. All right, Avery says, Putin can take what he wants. He don't want no smoke with us. And we spend close to $1 billion on defense. We are not worried about China or Russia. Okay. All right. Avery, I got to ask you, when Putin starts wreaking havoc on Europe and all the Europeans have to flood into America seeking shelter and safety, are you going to tell the immigrants go home? This is the thing. I'm going to ask everybody. I'm asking this question to everybody. When Europe goes to hell, when World War III pops off, and all the Poles, all the Italians, the Germans, the Slovaks, the Czechs, the Hungarians, they're fleeing and they're going all over the place, and they'd have to flee to somewhere safe. So they're picking America, and they're going to do what their ancestors did: hop on boats and sail across the sea to the land of the free. Okay? No, Avery, don't say, well, we should lock our country down for 4 years. Answer the question. Are we going to keep that same energy when, if we let Putin win, we're going to have a ton of immigrants and migrants coming from Europe into America? Y'all are quick to turn up on the Latin Americans. Y'all are quick to turn up on the Africans sneaking across the border. I want to know, are we going to have the same heat for the Czechs, for the Slovaks, for the Hungarians, for the Serbians, for the Bulgarians, Romanians, whatever, when they are like, we need freedom, we want to be safe, we are running away from war, we should lock down our country for 4 years? That's not answering the question, because the war could go on much longer than 4 years. The war has been going on, 3 years now? So we lock our country down for 4 years, but Europe stays at war for a good decade. And all the immigrants and all the refugees are running to America. Are y'all going to be saying close the borders? Nobody's answering the question. We know we are not going to answer because they're blonde hair, blue eye, big booty pogs. That's why. That's why. We know the answer why. Y'all don't want to answer that, but that's the reason why. All right. Avery just said, close the border. Okay. Close the border. Close the border. Yes, because America will absolutely close the border when the migrants look like this. When the immigrants look like this, yeah, America will say, close the border. Come on now. Come on now. Come on now. Anyway, where was I? So, Savannah Chrisley says, my family was persecuted by rogue prosecutors in Fulton County due to our public profile. I know, Fulton County. They know how to do it, don't they? Chrisley's statement about her parents' court case could leave viewers with the false impression that she was referring to Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis, who was prosecuting Trump for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election in Georgia. The case against Chrisley Knows Best star Todd and Julie Chrisley was prosecuted by federal prosecutors in northern Georgia, not Willis. A federal grand jury indicted the reality show stars in 2019 on multiple counts of conspiracy, bank fraud, wire fraud, and tax evasion. Nothing but criminals in the Republican Party. Todd and Julie Chrisley were sentenced in 2022, and their sentences were later reduced to 10 and 5 years respectively. But an appeals court sent Julie's sentencing back to a lower court in June. Prosecutors said the couple conspired to defraud community banks in the Atlanta area to obtain more than $36 million in personal loans. The Chrisleys submitted false bank statements and other records to Georgia community banks to obtain the loans, and then spent the money on luxury items and used new fraudulent loans to pay back old ones. After spending the money, Todd Chrisley filed for bankruptcy, and the couple failed to file tax returns for several years. Trump nominated B.J. Pak, the U.S. attorney in northern Georgia who oversaw the prosecution. Pak resigned shortly before Joe Biden took office in 2021. All right. So KO says them snow bunnies will breed black. That's funny. That's funny. No, they won't. No, they won't, because many Eastern Europeans harbor anti-blackness in their soul. And plus, they're moving to the home of white supremacy in America. All right. So anyway, we just fact-checked the lying Republicans. Lying Republicans. The worst people you know all gathered together. I hope y'all are enjoying the convention as it's happening now. Let me close the poll. So 100% in the poll said Trump will win. I'm letting y'all know Biden is going to win. Biden is going to win, and y'all are going to look crazy. I should have asked the question, would you bet $1,000 that Trump is going to win? Would you bet $1,000 that Trump is going to win? I bet nobody would do it. Anyway, I've been on this live stream long enough. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Y'all be easy out there. Y'all stay tuned for more content. Simon Hill keeps it trill. Peace.